And good morning. It is a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I am Glenn. Griffin is here. And since it's a Friday, he is the Chief Grand Poobah at PressBox. Our buddy Stan the Fan Charles back in studio with us. Double dipping this week here in studio on GCR. Good to see you, sir.
That's right. Was here earlier in the week.
Indeed. You had a nice cameo appearance. Just popped in. You were taping a special, I believe, across the hall. And so you said, I'll wander in and say hello to the guys. And I appreciated that. Are we going to? Is that the Christmas spectacular that we're going to see later this year?
Working on the Christmas.
Big dance numbers, obviously. I look forward to that a great deal.
Boy, do you watch America's Got Talent?
I don't. It's been a long time since I've watched America's Got Talent.
They had a performance. When I say last night, it's whenever my wife calls me in and says, "You got to see this." It was some either Chinese or Japanese dance group.
Like troupe, yeah.
It was absolutely one of the most riveting things
Really?
I've ever seen.
Okay. All right. If you can find it on YouTube or sign Griffin to it. No.
Yeah. Can you look into it, Griff?
This is your most important responsibility.
Okay.
Forget everything else.
Forget the guests.
Correct.
You know.
Right,
Got to get that done for me. Also, if you ever think the computers aren't listening, literally as I suggested that Stan was taping his Christmas special, his Bob Hope Christmas special, where he's going to unveil the AP All-American College football team and the whole deal, I look down at my email is up, and the email that I see is from our friends at The Lyric informing me that a Charlie Brown Christmas is coming to The Lyric this year. And I'm telling you,
that was because you mentioned Christmas.
Computers are listening. They're always, always, always listening. Just happened at the exact same time. Okay. Coming up on the program today, we will check in with our buddy Bo Smolka, PressBox Ravens beat writer. Ravens play their preseason opener tomorrow night against the Eagles. We'll try to see if there's anything worth watching in said contest.
The one thing that hit me when I said, "Boy, they're playing the Eagles. That's a pretty good team." How many straight games have they won in preseason?
In the preseason, it's 23. Yes, 23.
I think it comes to an end.
Oh,
what?
Whoa!
Yeah.
This has been the safest bet in all of sports betting. I was going to tell everyone to go sign up right now at Superbook.com. Use the code GlennClark23, or if you want Stan Charles 23, but I've heard Glenn Clark 23 is better. That's all it's something I've heard.
Okay.
And I would
you hit your bet at a higher rate when you
take that $250 first bet, put it on the Ravens tomorrow night to continue the streak, and then
who's going to be favored in the game? That's not just.
I think I saw the Ravens not only are favored. I think I saw they're favored by like 6 points, which is unheard of.
Really?
Unheard of. In the preseason.
I guess Jalen Hurts isn't going to play.
Well, nobody's playing in this game. But one team appears to care.
The Eagles actually reached out to me.
They said that if you had a couple of snaps in you, right. But I would go to Superbook.com, bet $250 on the Ravens to win, because here's the good news. The most likely scenario is you're going to win your bet, get your winnings, and get $250 worth of free bets. Worst case scenario.
Do they match your first bet?
Win or lose.
Win or lose.
Win or lose if you use the code at Superbook.
Yeah. Stan Charles 23.
Well, right, and that's okay, but I would prefer Glenn Clark 23. We're actually secretly, this is a war between Stan and I, and at the end, the winner gets to throw the other one into the harbor, actually, I believe is the way.
I think I got my first one is signing up today.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Is that
I don't know how to monitor it.
Yeah.
I hope we've had a few sign up.
It's that Japanese,
Chinese
dance
dance troupe.
They said if you
all,
mention us,
every single one of them will sign up.
Was
That's
it
remarkable.
Chibi Unity? Was that the name of the? Were they wearing hoodies, Stan?
What's that?
The dance group. They were wearing hoodies.
It was watch it and tell Glenn. Vouch.
Yeah, do live play-by-play, please.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Yes, it looked like it looks like it was Monday or Tuesday night.
All right, tell you what, just send me the video and I'll look at it when I get the opportunity.
I'm going to give you the spoiler alert.
Yes.
They actually got the whatever they call it on there, the golden ticket.
Oh, okay.
They go through to the finals.
Oh,
Yes,
boy.
The golden buzzer.
The golden buzzer.
Boy.
That's right. Golden buzzer.
All right, so we'll preview the Ravens preseason opener. Also, we'll preview Orioles-Mariners. Seattle legendary play-by-play voice Rick Rizzs will join us later on in the program as well. Stan,
they've been playing pretty good baseball.
They have been playing very good baseball of late. Stan, I did a fill-in show last night on 105.7, and I ended up doing about an hour with calls on this topic, so I'm going to give it to you today.
Mm-hmm.
Orioles do salvage the finale of the series against the Astros. Got very hairy again in the ninth inning, but thankfully this time Felix Bautista held on. They salvage one. They keep the streak of not getting swept alive. The question that I asked was, what did this week, from just the baseball standpoint, just the on-the-field stuff, what did that tell us about where the Orioles are in terms of their ability to compete in the playoffs with the best teams in baseball?
Despite the fact that they lost 2 games, I thought, look, you can say we woulda, shoulda, coulda till the cows come home, but I thought we obviously should have won the first game of the series. We're not even really questioning that if we win that first game.
Correct.
Now, you can't go back and put the toothpaste
Nope.
back in the tube. I'm feeling pretty good about this team. I had a real problem and asked Brandon a question the other night in the post-game interview, and he basically blew me off. Didn't really take it seriously. I did not understand at all. Now, at the time, I didn't realize Cologne was totally unavailable.
Right.
But I still, when Shintaro Fujinami walks 2 guys in a row,
2 of the guys at the bottom of the order.
Yeah, I don't care how close he is to the strike zone. His ball 4s weren't even remotely close. I'm taking him out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not waiting to walk. I want Michael Baumann to face Martin Maldonado, not Jose Altuve.
Sure.
With 2 outs. If I got to get 1 out to get out of that inning, I just thought it was a bad bit of managing.
One of the points that you're making is there were 2 big takeaways that I had. This was a really good hour of conversation that ended up happening. I was stunned by the quality of the calls that we were getting last night. Made me very happy. 2 big takeaways that came through. The first is the bullpen, right? That, like, the separating factor is less, like, you feel like you're getting enough from your starting pitching. It's not overwhelming, but you're getting enough. Even when Jack Flaherty didn't really have it the other night, he battled, got through 5 innings, gave you an opportunity to win the game. You feel like you're getting something quality from your starting pitching. You also feel like while the lineup isn't perfect, it is producing at a level that you should be able to win games. But the bullpen appears to be the separating factor between the Orioles and the best teams in baseball. That's where you just don't have a ton of confidence. Everybody's had their moments. Everybody's had, even Webb the other day comes in his first game and looks brilliant for an inning. And a lot of people were asking, why didn't you let him have a second inning at that point? Because he was overwhelming through his first 3 batters.
Struck out all 3.
Correct. Yeah. But that appears to be the area where there's a little bit of separation between the best teams, the Astros, the Braves, the Dodgers, and then the Orioles is just not having as many arms that you really have faith in. Now, we'll see as some of these guys start coming back, whether they go to the bullpen or who that bumps back to the bullpen.
What is Coulombe's injury?
It was, now I've already...
knee?
I don't think it was. I think it was hang on. Lord. Biceps tendinitis.
Okay. That could be 2 or 3 weeks.
And that's what everybody's, when you hear biceps tendinitis, everyone's initial response is that might be more than 15 days.
Yeah.
Brandon Hyde downplayed that yesterday, said they're expecting it to be right around the 15-day window. We will see.
For anybody that plays fantasy baseball can attest to this. All you need to do is go to CBS Sports. Their little capsules are so enlightening. I'm being sarcastic.
Oh, okay. They're
not
not helpful at all.
Worst,
okay. Well, thanks a lot, CBS Sports. We're going to declare war on CBS Sports. Actually, that's not true. We're not going to do that.
There really is, for people that gamble on sports and put a lot of money on fantasy baseball, there really is no great place to get injury updates. It's treated so poorly. It's amazing.
ESPN's is okay.
What's that?
ESPN's is okay. They have like a little news bubble for each player.
Right.
That usually stays pretty up to date.
Okay.
But can't speak for CBS Sports.
The other big takeaway that I got yesterday, and I thought this to me was mine, was just a reminder of these teams are so good that your margin for error becomes really slim in these moments.
Well, your margin for error yesterday hinged on an error, a terrible error by CNL Perez.
Correct.
That if he had made that out, it would have been the 3rd out of the 8th inning. We would have faced 7, 8, and 9. Instead, 2 more hitters batted that inning. We had to face Altuve. It's amazing. You can't give a good team an
Well,
inch
Ed,
because they will take a mile.
look, Austin Hayes got there to catch the ball yesterday, but didn't catch the ball. And
Yep.
I'm not trying to say that's an easy play or anything along those lines, but those are the types of plays
Yep.
that you have to make when you're playing the Houston Astros. If you don't get that out, it's absurd to suggest that it's disappointing that Ramon Urias didn't catch that screaming liner, because the truth is, just by getting in front of it, he saved the game, right? Like, if that ball gets past him, the game is
game's
tied.
No question about
But
it.
still, against the Astros, you almost have to make those types of plays. You almost have to go above and beyond. Jorge Mateo.
And they did basically that whole game yesterday up until those couple
The Frazier
plays.
play, of course, was outstanding.
Urias on
Yep.
the leadoff,
100%. But you saw on Tuesday that first catch that Mateo makes is great, but then when he
wasn't dancing.
ultimately, it was a routine play. Like, that's the second one, and we can debate whether or not Jorge Mateo should have been in center field in the ninth inning of that game when you put Ryan McKenna in right. Why don't you put him in center at that point? Like, we can have that conversation, but whoever's out there has got to make that play. There's no need for you to be leaping for that ball. That ball is in the air waiting for you. I get that you're trying to prove that you can do cool things so you can warrant your spot on the roster, but you don't need to do a cool thing here. You just need to go catch the ball and not have the bases be loaded at that point. So,
in fairness, Brandon Hyde defended him by saying there are very few center fielders that would have gotten to that ball, considering where he was playing.
I get that.
I didn't get a great view of that. I was at the ballpark, and the TVs for replays are really small up there. I don't know. I just didn't get a great glimpse of it. Luke told me that he didn't even really have to jump.
He did not have to jump for the ball in any way. And I don't know. To say a lot of center fielders, most of the time your center fielder is out there because of his range, because of his athleticism. Certainly Cedric Mullins is getting to that ball. Would Colton Cowser have gotten to that ball? I don't know.
Yeah.
It looked like one they should have been able to get. I think that ball was in the air longer than Jorge Mateo realized it was going to be in the air in that situation.
Yeah.
All that being said, it goes back to the margin for error. That they, even when it looked like the other night, like Framber Valdez was a mess, and you could just pile on as many runs as you want, Dusty Baker still had the confidence to say, we'll keep running him back out there for more innings. Twofold, we think he's going to be okay and he'll settle down, and we're not going to screw up the ability to win tomorrow night because we're not going to hurt our bullpen as much. They have the ability to do that because they don't have to worry about innings limits for their pitchers, the way that Brandon Hyde has to worry about innings limits for his pitchers. The margin for error against the Astros specifically, and obviously were you to get to the World Series and face the Dodgers or Braves, those three teams are so good top to bottom, have so many of the boxes checked, and the Rangers on paper are that team, but we just have not really seen them put it all together in that way. That was the big takeaway for me, is that you can't make any errors at all, any mistake at all. These teams are too good. They're going to capitalize on it.
No question about it. No question about it.
The Orioles now go to Seattle. We expect Cedric Mullins to return tonight. That's been the expectation. The first question is, who goes? And I feel like it's between Ryan McKenna and Colton Cowser, and I've started in my mind leaning towards Colton Cowser being the answer.
That's a tricky one. There's no question about it. I would say, based on the Grayson Rodriguez litmus test, it would be Cowser that goes down. Meaning that we know he's a terrific player and will be, but right now, I think McKenna possibly adds a little bit more. I will tell you one thing. Of that entire outfield that the Orioles have, I feel more comfortable when Colton Cowser is fielding a ball than any other outfielder we have.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
At
At any position. He's played all three positions, I think, exceedingly well.
I feel like I feel like at this point the argument is like the production part of it is obvious.
Yeah.
I think the other part is it seems like Brandon Hyde's reluctant to play him, and I think that Colton Cowser needs to play. And so until minor league season is over, look, both of these guys likely are going to be gone when Hicks comes back, right? Like when Hicks comes back, it's one or the other. I don't think there's another option unless someone else gets hurt, obviously. And, of course, right? Like, let's do that.
Well, those things always
They
there's an old
tend- they
adage that
tend
they
to-
have a way to work themselves out.
100%. But if you've got to make a decision today about a roster spot,
Yeah, I would think Hicks and Mullins would replace Calzer and McKenna, the one other option. But I think Brandon still sensibly knows that Mateo has a tremendous amount of value.
oh, it seems
And-
abundantly clear that they are
Yeah.
hell-bent on keeping his speed on
Yeah.
the roster for the playoffs.
Yeah.
It seems
It's a weapon.
and at this point, considering the roster does still expand to 28 in September, I think you can say, hey, we're really doing is keeping him for another 3 weeks, and then the roster expands, and then we can use a roster spot in the playoffs on someone who's just nothing other than a pinch runner, a guy that we can try to take advantage of.
Refresh my
his speed.
memory in the postseason. They have to have been on your roster
By
prior to
September
1st,
I believe. Yes.
Okay.
I believe that's the case. I'll double check it, but I believe that is
Yeah.
the case.
Yeah.
So I get it, and I do think that you're right that at this point they're not doing anything with Mateo. They've ridden it out this long, and he does still hit against left-handers. I mean, he's hitting 300 against left-handers
Yeah.
this season. So they look at those numbers. Those numbers matter, and for whatever his shortcomings are, they've decided that they think he has value because of it, and so I think that you're 100% right that they're not going to move Jorge Mateo.
Yeah.
And so I do think it's down to those two guys again, save for something else happening between now and then. But for today, if it has to be one or the other, I think it's Calzer. Now, if you were comfortable using Calzer in the McKenna role and just saying he's going to be a defensive replacement and that's his role with this team, and we'll worry about his offensive production again next year, then we can listen to that. But I don't think that's a good way to treat Colton Calzer in the grand scheme of things.
Brandon seems to have a real affinity for McKenna. He just trusts him, and I'm not going to question that. I mean, I think we all know that Calzer ultimately is a more significant player.
No question.
But for 3 weeks, like you say, and you'd make the assumption that Calzer would be eligible to be on the postseason roster by being one of the 28 people.
Right.
Yeah, they have to be on the 40-man or
have to be on the
60-day injured list.
Right.
On
by
September 1st.
Yes.
Right.
October 31st at 11:59 is the technical.
Wait, what? August 31st.
August,
not
sorry,
yes.
yes.
Who's
Right.
this player that the Orioles acquired? This guy playing first base now.
Oh, who's this guy? This
Mountcastle
Mountcastle?
guy.
A lot of us owe
He
some
doesn't look like-
lot of us owe some apologies.
Yeah.
A lot of us.
Well, I'll tell you a funny.
owe some mea
I'll tell you a
culpas.
funny story about that.
Yeah.
I'm on the air in 1985, and Mike Young, and I'm on after every Oriole game. The Orioles bring up Mike Young. He had played briefly. He shows up as having played on the '83 team. That must have been like a real cup, like a mini cup of coffee. But it's '85, and they're playing him every day. And no, it was '84. He had played a bunch, and '85 they're playing him, and it's mid-May to June, and I start beating up on Mike Young that he is. There's no way this guy's a major league player, and yada da da da. He just can't catch up the pitching, and he's really in over his head. He's never going to amount to anything. Look up how Mike Young did from about July 1st, 1985 till the end of the season. He had arguably one of the best 3-month stretches, I would say, in close to in Oriole history. He was just absolutely amazing. And I go on the air, and when you just said about Ryan Mountcastle, some of us owe him some apologies.
Serious mea culpas.
Yeah.
Mike Young in July of that season hit .319 with a .374 on base percentage. In August, .298 with a .374 on base percentage.
How many home runs?
In
About 15
June,
home
July,
runs
and
in the-
August,
yeah.
he combined for so from July to the end of the season, 22.
22. He had
Yeah.
28, I think, for the season.
Yeah.
He looked to be and I went on the air one night and I said, boy, I got to eat my words. Mike Young has turned into really a nice player. He was dominant. He was unbelievable. The next year, there were 2 players on that 85 team. They were Floyd Rayford, who hit over 300 as a catcher, third baseman, and Mike Young, who had that tremendous season. Now, remember, We already had a guy named Cal Ripken and a guy named Eddie Murray.
Yeah, I've heard of those guys.
And there were some other good players on that team, and we made the assumption that those were the players we were going to see.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that season, 86, I was early in the season. I don't term it bashing. I was questioning what's going on with Eddie Murray. He didn't look that good, and Cal Ripken wasn't hitting that well. And it's like about May the 1st, and Weaver comes up to me because he and I used to have a really good relationship, and he'd walk past me, and he goes, I listen to your show. He goes, you think I really give a rat's ass what Cal Ripken and Eddie Murray are hitting right now? And I go, well, he goes, they've done it before. They've done it year in and year out. The two guys I worry about are those two. He points to Floyd Rayford and Young.
Mike Young.
And they were horrible the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So when you apologize about a player,
well, yeah, it certainly doesn't guarantee
it doesn't mean that he's guaranteed to go to Cooperstown. But this guy, it begs the question, seriously. We witnessed what Ryan Mountcastle was for the month before that he had the vertigo. Did he have vertigo that they didn't know about? He looked so freaking bad that, and I bring it up because of Rizzo played apparently like 6-7
weeks
with
a concussion.
With a concussion.
That's a great point. I think he's alluded to the idea that at a point he thought he was swinging at 3 baseballs instead of swinging at 1.
Okay. It would have been nice to know.
And it certainly would have been nice to know.
He's a good player.
But you know, it's funny. You and I talked about this for a young man that doesn't understand what's going on and is always like at that age in your life, you feel like you have control of everything. And when something's wrong, you're just not inclined to be able to speak it through and say this is because you don't understand it. You've never been through something like that before. How do you explain to someone? You just feel like you're letting.
It was the worst period of his career.
There's no question about it. And he's been and not just against Toronto, obviously. He has been unbelievable.
I was sitting the other night in the front row of the game he hit the home run, the massive home run. And I was talking to my brother, and I just heard a sound. And I turned, and I watched that ball, and I said, man, is that hit.
Power. Just absolutely hammered. No question. All right,
Stan. We decided, is it the second longest home run or third longest?
It's in the StatCast era. It's the longest.
Hit by an Oriole. But Strawberries is the longest.
I believe that's what it was. I'll double check.
All right,
Correa was 474, and Mountcastle was 472.
Unreal. I mean, it was just unreal. All right, tomorrow night, Stan, the Baltimore Ravens play their first preseason game as they host the Philadelphia Eagles. Joining us now to, I guess, preview that, talk more about what's been going on this week out in Owings Mills. He is PressBox Ravens beat writer Bo Smolka. Bo, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right. As you know, this is not for me. I do not care for preseason football. I will not be spending my time with preseason football tomorrow night, but for those that will, give me a couple names. We know that the regulars are not playing. They made that announcement yesterday. That's not surprising. It's the right thing to do. Who are a couple of names to you that will be interesting for fans that will have the opportunity to watch the game?
I mean, I think you have to look at everyone in the defensive backfield, right? Because those again, I look at what positions are not deep right now. In the defensive backfield already, at cornerback, there's an issue. So you take a guy like Ardarius Washington, who is probably on the roster bubble, though in my mind he's on the safe side of the bubble, particularly with the injuries at cornerback. He can play slot corner. He can play safety. He's viewed as undersized, which is why he wasn't drafted. But he's getting a lot of run, and he will get a lot of run tomorrow night, I would think. And I think watching him play in the slot is something that bears watching. Another name that might be worth watching is Jeremiah Moon, outside linebacker. Another guy that's kind of on the roster bubble, but look at their edge rush group.
Yeah,
There's just not a lot there right now.
Yeah.
And this is a guy that has a chance to really state a case for himself. So I think those are two guys absolutely to watch. Of course, there's going to be the receiver group. I know a lot of people want to see Dante Demas from Maryland. That receiver group, as we know, is loaded right now. Rashad Bateman's come back, so the whole group is healthy. I just don't see a path to the roster for a guy like Dante Demas unless a lot of guys get hurt. But he not only is playing for a practice squad spot, he could be playing for 30 other teams basically, because if he does not make the Ravens, and this is for all these guys, if they do not make the Ravens and they put good performance on tape, there's another team that might come calling for them after they get waived. So that's there to be had. It's not as much drama for fans as much as it is for the players, that's for sure. But I think Moon and Washington are two guys could really state a case for themselves.
Bo, Lamar Jackson, when will he play at all in preseason?
My gut is no. I get the sense more and more that John Harbaugh is pivoting to not playing these guys at all. I know he has shifted over the course of his career, and at times he would have them ramp up a little bit. Remember, there used to be 4 preseason games.
Right.
And usually the starters wouldn't play at all in the first one. They might play a series in the second one. The third one, they might play as much as a half. And then the fourth one, they wouldn't play at all. And it just seems to me that over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, he has pivoted to the theory held by Sean McVay and some others that there is far less to be gained than lost by playing these guys at all. And in my mind, I'd be surprised to see if we see Lamar Jackson at all.
I understand it, and certainly the risk probably is far more significant than the reward. Bo Smolka with us here on GCR. But a couple of items from this week of news. One, this scenario where Patrick Ricard was back and taking some offensive line snaps, which is wild to me. Is that, hey, there's probably going to be fewer fullback snaps in a Todd Monken offense, so let's see, he's going to be here. Let's see if there are other ways that we can involve him. Or is it maybe that it's not a guarantee that there is a roster spot at this point anymore for a fullback, so in order to, warrant that roster spot, we need to see you do some other things?
I think it was very interesting when he came out. Again, he'd been on PUP the whole spring because of a hip injury or recovering from his hip injury. And he came out for that first day, and we saw him go over the offensive lineman, which was notable because that's not usually where he goes. And then, but again, special teams groups are going on. They haven't broken into position groups. And so, but then once practice started and everyone broke into position groups and the fullbacks generally go with the tight ends, he stayed with the linemen. And then when the full team drills were going on, he stayed off on a side field working with a coach on clearly offensive line pass protection moves. So it was a 100% offensive line practice for him, which was absolutely eye-opening. To answer your question, I think both are in play. I think there's no question that a fullback will be utilized less in this offense than in the Greg Roman offense. Now, does that mean Patrick Ricard might not have a job? In some sense, maybe. I mean, he's an expensive guy right now, but there is I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's more than $2 million in dead money they would eat if he were to go away this year. So that is a cost that they may not want to incur. But you look at it and say, well, if we are going to use a fullback sometimes, and maybe he can fill in as that third or fourth guard in a pinch. And by the way, maybe he could even plug in as a defensive lineman if we're really desperate. He hasn't played on the defensive line for 3 years now, I believe, not one snap. But as John Harbaugh says, the more you can do. And Ricard is trying to make himself more valuable to this team right now. And here's a chance. Now, it's funny because obviously in the offensive backfield is an absolute load. On the offensive line, he's on the underside side. Although he's only, if you go by the heights and weights, he's not much smaller than Patrick McCary, who's, of course, the Ravens' super utility lineman. So there is that, and he becomes he could possibly be more of a inline blocking tight end. And there are a lot of ways they can use him, but it absolutely was notable to see him lined up on the offensive line.
Bo, tell me a little bit about what your early observations are about the Todd Monken offense.
All right, so I will confess that this week, because of the storm, I was out of power for 3 full days, and I had to stay home and miss 2 practices while I dealt with a generator and all this other fun stuff. But I will say, I only saw 1 practice this week.
Okay. The
Todd Monken office is, to me, everything is going to operate faster. I think you're going to see the tempo be different. I think it will be – I'll be very surprised if we have as many situations where they're rushing to the line with 2 seconds on the clock and rushing to get a playoff. I'm not saying they will play hurry up per se, but I think the rhythm and the tempo will be sped up. I think we will see them spread the field, and Todd Monken told us this the day he was hired. He said he believes in spreading the field not only vertically but horizontally. He wants to get this group of receivers he has in space, get them the ball, let them run after the catch, and I think he's a guy like Zay Flowers could be tremendous at that. And so I think we'll see much more in the way of spread that way. I think we'll see more in the way of receivers out of the backfield catching passes. So I think all of that will look a little different than last year. And I'll say this, we've even seen a couple completed screen passes.
What a world.
So that would also be different.
Is that observation, do you think the reason they were so slow was because of Roman, or was it some type of communication problem, or just wasn't an important part of Greg's offense to have not a hurry up, like you said, but an up-tempo movement?
Well, you may recall, Greg Roman said at one point last year something about, that is going to cost the other team 8 to 10 plays a game if we take all this time off the play clock. To me, that was a fairly dubious explanation.
Yeah.
I think sometimes they were a little disorganized in getting the play in and getting to the line of scrimmage. I think sometimes it was by design and sometimes they were not organized.
Yeah.
And I think Todd Monken from the start has preached this rhythm and tempo being a high priority.
He is Bo Smolka, PressBox Ravens beat writer with us here on GCR. Bo, some other news from this week. One, Broderick Washington gets a 3-year extension. Seems smart. Seems like the money makes sense. I guess the question is, where are they with Justin Madubuike? Is he kind of under the microscope a little bit this year? Are we at the point where maybe they're fearing that he's going to price himself out of Baltimore? And are they keeping any options open to use the tag at the end of the season on a guy like him, or, we'll talk more about him, J.K. Dobbins?
So, I think they'd love to keep Madubuike too. Broderick Washington, Eric Acosta, his goal ideally is to retain his own, the guys that he's drafted, developed, and thinks can really continue to play here. I think they really like Broderick Washington. I know they also really like Madubuike. The Washington deal is, it was a good price for him, a good price for the team. It made sense, and it's one less thing they have to worry about in the future. I think they'd love to keep Madubuike. I do think there's a chance he plays well and prices them out of the market. I'll say this. Coming out of training camp last year, I thought Madubuike was, or maybe it was 2 years ago, I think it was last year, I was really high on Madubuike, and then there were times he kind of got invisible for a little while. But he's been impressive again this summer, and John Harbaugh said at one point last week, Justin Madubuike is in the backfield all the time, and he isn't running around anyone. He's just running over people. And so I think they're really high on Madubuike. I do think they're a little worried of him pricing out of the market, but again, other than Travis Jones, pretty much all their top defensive linemen were set to become free agents after this season. So I also think they thought it important to at least get a couple guys in the fold for the future and have them set up. So they do it with Washington. I think they'd love to do it with Madubuike too, but Washington's the one that got done.
Now I brought up the name J.K. Dobbins. We still see no J.K. Dobbins on the practice field at this point. I've talked to a few folks this week, the SiriusXM guys, Pat Kerwin, Jim Miller, their suggestion, it's time to activate Dobbins off a pup and start finding him because you got to get him in and get him in game shape and ready to go. I don't think the Ravens want to create a problem between themselves and J.K. Dobbins between now and then, but is there a point in which they need to say, hey, by this date, we kind of need you here, or we might have to consider other things if this starts to be a threat that, he might not be ready for week 1?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's a good point. I mean, they brought in Melvin Gordon. They're giving him and Gus Edwards and Dustin Hill are getting all the reps, and they're doing well. There's obviously some frustration there on both sides with this Dobbins thing. John Harbaugh clearly does not want to talk about it. He keeps saying it's a J.K. Dobbins issue. You could activate him off pup, say get out here, but this is what I've said all along. J.K. Dobbins wants to get paid. That's all well and good, but he's not going to get paid if he's not playing. He needs to get out there and play in order for any team to pay him in the future, whether it's here or elsewhere. So at some point, if J.K. Dobbins wants to watch out for J.K. Dobbins, he's going to have to play. And so it's a touchy thing. I mean, if they don't have him ready for week 1, I think John Harbaugh's going to say, fine, we'll go on board with Edwards and Hill and Gordon and maybe Keaton Mitchell, and we'll take our chances. And J.K. Dobbins will come when he's ready. But, I mean, for the big picture, this team is better with Dobbins than without him. I've said that all along. But Dobbins is he's only going to help his future by playing.
So you don't think that at any point they end up dipping their toes into the Dalvin Cook market if J.K. Dobbins continues to hold in?
I still would. That would surprise me.
Yeah, me too.
Last question for me, Bo. What are you seeing? Well, I understand you weren't there that much this week. What are you expecting out of Oweh this year?
He's looked good. I mean, I know he was a disappointment last year. I don't think there's any way you can say otherwise. 2.5 sacks, I believe he had. This is your first-round pick from a couple of years ago. You're expecting him to be a huge impact guy. Now, the Ravens defensive coaches will say all the right things. They'll say, well, Oweh really forced quarterback into Justin Houston for some of Justin Houston's sacks. Oweh was disruptive in ways that don't show up on the stat sheet. That all may be true, but I've also heard people say, at some point we need him to get to the quarterback.
Yeah.
I'll say he's right now, again, it's summer and the pads aren't on every day. But he and Ajabo look really good together. I know we wrote about them for the magazine, for the print issue. They enjoy playing together. Ajabo has looked terrific. And what I'm expecting out of Oweh is to be a big impact pass rusher. That's what you get a first-round draft pick for. He's looked the part so far. I think another 2.5 sack season out of him would have to be viewed as a major disappointment. This is a guy that they need to be disruptive. But he's looked fast. He's looked more comfortable this year. I think there was obviously disappointment last year. He knows. He said he's got close. Sometimes he didn't get there, and that was frustrating. But I think as of now, I think he looks good and Ajabo looks good. To me, the bigger issue there is there's not a whole lot there behind them right now. And as I said, Tyus Bowser is dealing with a knee injury. He hasn't been on the field at all. The depth there is not what it needs to be. I know Jadeveon Clowney was in this week. There was a report that they offered him, and it's interesting because some of these veteran guys like to sit around on the summer, and I don't have to play in those 12 training camp practices when it's 95 degrees, and I stay in shape, and then the offers come at the end of training camp. But Clowney is a possibility, or I think they have to bolster the edge rush group with a veteran one way or the other because Ajabo and Oweh have looked good, but they can't get through there with just the two of them. That is for sure.
Hey, Bo, I lied to you. I said that was my last question about Oweh, but we've got a new edition of PressBox hitting soon. You did a cover story on Lamar Jackson. Without giving away the entire story, what did you learn about Lamar in doing this story that you might have not really paid attention to or not known before?
Well, I mean, I talked to a lot of people. The one I talked to the most, or the one that was best about the perspective of it, was Kurt Warner. The Hall of Fame quarterback, talked a lot about kind of the pressure that comes from, Kurt Warner, like Lamar Jackson, won the MVP in his second season.
Yeah.
And then the question was, what comes next? And what's the pressure on you after that happens? I can't remember if I included in the story, but Kurt Warner basically said, no one wants to say, "Oh, you're great. You got the MVP. You're obviously a really good player." The question is always, what are you going to do next? It's always, what are you going to do next? And so, I know with Lamar Jackson, obviously he won the MVP. He's considered one of the great players in the league. But I think also his detractors, and Lamar Jackson, for whatever reason, continues to be a polarizing player. There are people, many, many, many people will say he's one of the top 5 talents in the league. Other people don't even consider him a top second-tier quarterback because he has one playoff win.
Mm-hmm.
And that, as I wrote in the story, that is going to hound him like an all-pro edge rusher until that number changes. And so the question is, can this new offense, this new group of receivers, this new system, all of that, can it get Lamar Jackson and the Ravens farther than they've gotten before? And obviously his health is a big, big part of it. But can all of this do that? Because really, that's what the Ravens have paid him for. They paid him, Eric DeCosta said to us, we believe he's the best quarterback in the NFL, and this contract reflects it. All right, well, if you're paying that, if you think he's the best quarterback in the NFL, you're paying him to go win the Super Bowl. And that's the pressure that's on Lamar Jackson now. And it's on the team now, and Lamar Jackson's handled pressure very well before, but all of that is in play. With all of that's been done around him now, this team has been built for him to go win. And that's kind of where he's at right now.
That new issue of PressBox with Bo's cover story will be available this coming Wednesday at your neighborhood
16th,
Royal Farms and all the hundreds of locations around town where you find PressBox. Still a couple of days to get this Tony Siragusa issue, but this coming Wednesday, a new print issue of PressBox with Bo's cover story. At B Smolka on Twitter, of course, PressBoxOnline.com where you see his stuff. Bo, appreciate you. Look forward to chatting with you again next week.
All right, thanks, guys. Take care.
Bo, I'll call you later. I want to chat with you about something and the other thing you sent me that
There you
note
go.
about, okay? I'll give you a buzz later.
All right.
All right,
Talk
boy.
to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bo Smolka with us. Stan, I think, by the way, today's show brought to you by your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. Stan, the Dobbins situation does start getting fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Like, I think that everybody's kind of in an agreement while you'd like to have him out there. It's not the end of the world that J.K. Dobbins isn't out there for the start of training camp. It's sort of the wink, wink, nudge, nudge thing that's unspoken here. John Harbaugh can't say, well, really, like, we're kind of glad he's not getting hurt at the moment. Like, we'll be all right. But there's a date by which you need him to be out there just to make sure that he is fully ready to go for week one and a real workload. And what that date is, I tried asking around a little bit. I've gotten the sense that from some people it's next week.
Mm-hmm.
Other people would tell you it's
The week
definitively the
after-
week
yeah,
after
the
that.
weekend.
But like by the week after that,
Yeah.
like the week of the last preseason game, you'd really at that point want to say, we need to know that you're going to be here.
Mhm.
And if he's not, if this is going to go into the Le'Veon Bell territory, if he's trying to push this thing even further, if his issues with the Ravens dating back to the surgery thing from last year are so significant that it really, what's unspoken is he said, I don't intend to play for you anymore. I either want you to trade me or release me or whatever. I'm done here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they got to get on to it. Like, they've got to get to a point where they get an answer, because if it's not J.K. Dobbins, and I know what Bo said was, well, they'll just run out Gus Edwards, Melvin Gordon, Justice Hill. Well, we've seen that.
Right.
The Ravens have not been as good when they haven't had J.K. Dobbins, and if there's any risk, like as much as I would be surprised by the Ravens being in the market for Dalvin Cook,
Mm-hmm.
if there's a bigger problem with J.K. Dobbins, at some point they could use someone special at the running back position. I don't know how much that costs them, and so it might not be practical anyway, but I don't know. That something has got to give at some point.
Is this a scenario though that's playing out from the little bit of football that I've been observing from
Mhm.
afar? It seems like this running back
Oh, it's-
situation.
yes.
It's all over the place.
It's far
the
bigger
Ravens are
than
not. It's an industry problem.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's far bigger than the Ravens. It's far bigger than J.K. Dobbins, and it's sort of why there's no obvious or logical answer to any of this,
Yeah.
right? Like J.K. Dobbins could say, I want money from you, but he's got to be able to read the tea leaves and see that around the NFL, no one's getting money.
Correct.
And if the top guys in the market aren't getting money, then, he's in the next group of guys.
So how many guys would you say in the league are doing what Dobbins is doing? Is he the only one?
Well, Jonathan
that is,
Taylor's not practicing
Right.
at all, right? Like
He's
he's
still
not
the property of the Colts.
He's
correct?
still there. Now, he's said that he's demanded a trade.
Right.
Jim Irsay said, we're not doing that come hell or high water. It's not happening. Forget about it. So who knows? For a little while, Saquon Barkley was doing it, but then they agreed to a one-year
year
deal
where they
in
paid
order
him.
to square that away. So it's not as prevalent, but it's more that all the running backs are looking and saying,
yeah, if you're not going to pay us, why should we
right,
work
are
that hard?
we suckers for going out here and doing this when you're just Jonathan Taylor's point that he made on Twitter was, you're openly telling us it doesn't matter what we do.
Right.
It doesn't matter if we go out and have an explosive season. And truth is, we've talked about this with J.K. Dobbins. The Ravens, when they gave Lamar Jackson the contract, might have just said, as we budget our money moving forward,
yeah, we don't have that much.
There's not going to be money at running back.
Yeah.
We're not going to spend money at running back.
Right.
So if that's the case, then the point that Bo made, well, in order to make money, you got to be on the field. J.K. Dobbins is saying, well, you're telling me if I'm on the field, I'm not going to make money anyway.
Yeah.
So what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Well, it can't get better by not playing. Like,
right.
you can't improve the situation, but I don't know what the end game is for anybody. I really don't know if you're J.K. Dobbins how you handle this, because I can certainly understand the frustration from running backs of if you're just come hell or high water not going to pay us.
Right. Then why should we put out anything during the preseason?
There's no chance that we're showing up for that.
Yeah.
Zero chance that we're participating in the preseason. And as both Jim Miller and Pat Kerwin said to me this week, like, well, activate him from PUP,
to make it hurt his pockets.
Threaten to fine him. Try to force the issue that way. And that sounds good, and it sounds sort of like a tough guy thing. But do you want to exacerbate this problem? Do you want to make this problem worse going into the season by trying to force the issue? Or are you just hoping that J.K. Dobbins will feel like he's made his point by not showing up for the first 4 weeks of training camp? Then once you get within a few weeks of the season, he'll say, no, but I want to play because I want to go earn my money. Mm-hmm. And everybody can be as kind of copacetic as possible given the circumstances. Don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't think they'll choose to do that. I don't think they'll choose to activate him before he says he's ready to start participating, because I don't think they want that issue. You will probably not bother to poke at the preseason game tomorrow night, or
no? I definitely,
you will
because
because it's not at the same time. That's right. The Orioles are playing late.
Playing at 7 o'clock. I would tape it and watch bits and pieces of it. I'll probably have a buddy over maybe and watch the game.
All right, very good. Stan the Fan is here. We're going to preview Orioles-Mariners coming up in a bit. Rick Rizzs, Mariners radio play-by-play voice, will join us at the top of the 11 a.m. hour as we continue along on a Friday edition of GCR. Hike to new heights. The best view is yours in Washington County. Our iconic scenic overlooks provide some of the most breathtaking vistas in the Mid-Atlantic. Some are very easy walks, some can be driven to, and some are the payoff for a moderate to difficult hike. All are near quaint small towns that offer great dining, shopping, hiking gear, and more. Explore our 5 national parks for iconic vistas and wineries with breathtaking views. Visit our quaint historic towns and make your stay unforgettable. Learn more at visithagerstown.com. Maryland, be open.
Soak up summertime fun in Charm City. Enjoy only in Baltimore festivals, mouth-watering eats, and endless entertainment. Cheer on the O's at Camden Yards. Pick crabs by the waterfront. Beat the heat inside a world-class museum and make memories that will last a lifetime. Go to baltimore.org for more information and to plan your visit.
You feel that? That's the sound of football coming back, and now's the time to place your preseason bets with Superbook Sports. Superbook is the most trusted name in Vegas, and now you can use my promo code GlennClark23 to score up to $250 with their first bet bonus. Win or lose, they'll match your first bet up to $250 with the promo code GlennClark23. All one word, no spaces, 2 N's in Glenn. Don't miss out this football season. Win some money with Superbook Sports and that promo code GlennClark23. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
I'm Michael Jangrandi, president of AJ Michaels, your carrier energy expert for 44 years. Save money, energy, and make your home more comfortable and virus-free. Find us at ajmichaels.com. That's ajmichaels.com.
Maryland drivers, did you know you can save up to 77% on tolls with an Easy Pass Maryland discount plan? That's right, 77%. It's never been easier. Pick the plan that's right for you at driveezmd.com. We'll keep you moving.
It's a Maryland thing you wouldn't understand.
Where the waves meet the shore, you will find Dorchester County. Hi, this is Jimmy Charles. When I think of Maryland, I think Dorchester County, on the Eastern Shore where it's open for making memories. Dorchester County, it's a Maryland thing. For more info, visit www.visitdorchester.org.
It's a Maryland thing. Hell yeah. It's a Maryland thing. Hell yeah.
Picking a restaurant to try for the first time? Let's look at the Costas Inn. Here's a few checklist items. Quality of the food? Check. Quality of service? Check. Does restaurant have plenty of free parking? Check. And finally, does restaurant have delicious steamed crabs, crab cakes, crab soup, and specials galore? Check, check, check. Costas Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard. They check all the boxes.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Check out PressBoxOnline.com every day to find daily winners and betting advice from Jeremy Kahn. And if you want some advice about life decisions that you probably shouldn't make, here's Glenn Clark.
Stan, a new top 100 prospects list from MLB.com. Their midseason list now interjecting draft players from this year and updates. 6 Orioles in the top 100. You want to take a guess at who they are and where they might be?
Kobe Mayo.
Kobe Mayo is certainly on the list.
Top 15.
Kobe Mayo, not quite top 15. No, Kobe
Top 25.
28 for Kobe Mayo.
Okay.
Yep.
Give him a couple more weeks.
Yeah, all of a sudden, yeah, right.
Heston Kjerstad.
Heston Kjerstad,
He's
absolutely.
probably top 10, right?
Not top 10.
Top
He's
15?
25.
25.
25 for Heston Kjerstad.
Wow. Our prospect list is going back.
There are, of course, 2 still in the top 15.
2 in the top 15. Jackson Holiday.
Jackson Holiday is obviously number 1 overall. And then the other one's kind of a trick.
Kind of a trick?
Yeah, because he's a major leaguer. But he still counts.
Colton Cowser?
Colton Cowser is number 14 on the list.
Is Kate Povich in
Kate
the top
Povich
100?
is not in the top 100.
Okay.
There are 2 other Orioles, number 50 and number 55. One who has been to the big leagues but is back down.
Joey Ortiz.
55 on the list. And number 50, who's not particularly close to the big leagues.
Is Connor Norby?
Nope.
Did they move Basayo up there?
Top 50. Samuel Basayo
Really?
is now, according to MLB.com, the number 50 prospect
Where's Norby?
in all of
Is
baseball.
he
Norby is not
100?
in the top 100.
Wow.
The team updates, so the top 30 prospects for the Orioles, of course, Holiday, Cowser, Kjerstad, Mayo, Basayo, Ortiz, as you'd expect. Norby is 7th. Then Enrique Bradfield, the Orioles' first-round pick out of Vanderbilt, comes up to number 8 in the Orioles team
Where's
listings.
Povich in there?
Povich is 12th. So Dylan Beavers 9th. They still D.L. Hall, who is still alive, number 10.
Thank goodness.
I had this conversation last night. D.L. Hall is the obvious answer, the guy that like maybe could help you, like if you're still looking for somebody who could help in.
Yeah.
Talk about a lefty as well.
Right, like that's an obvious answer. Is there one of these guys either that's returning or that is going to be up against an innings limit that you would be inclined to at this point say, we'd really like you to focus on putting some work in for a couple weeks in the minors, specifically as a leverage reliever to see if you couldn't help us in that department in September,
the most
October?
obvious would be Tyler Wells. You know,
who's
going to
start
come back? He's going to start now?
again tomorrow for Bowie. Of course,
But
John
I wonder
Means.
if
John Means
their goal with Wells though is to more pitch him as a glorified opener of like saying we're going to give you three innings or 4 innings,
which
max.
Could be again a way around these innings situations that you're dealing with. But I just feel like with so few guys that you fully trust right now. I get the argument for Wells is that you'd have to be on board with them and understand this is not us telling you you're a reliever. What we're saying is, given the uniqueness of the circumstances that we're dealing with, what we most badly need right now is one more leverage arm that we can trust in big spots. And instead of starting your next game at Bowie, we'd like to see you only come in a situation where there are runners on base and try to get used to those types of spots moving forward. I think Wells would make a lot of sense. From a talent...
Yeah, just to be perfectly literal about it, though, he has had experience in high leverage situations.
That's true.
In that first year, so
a little bit different, obviously, than
he's got to work on getting warmed up. Sort of getting into a routine of how he warms up. DL Hall, of course, is the other one. You know, I mean.
Well, DL Hall, there's no argument for for the alternative, right? There's no argument.
He's no
whatsoever.
longer loading.
I don't think so.
Or was it deloading?
He was deloading. He's back in an affiliate
he's
now.
Reloading.
I guess he's reloading.
Yeah.
I don't.
Loaded, man.
But he's not loading up because he's not going back
Be a
to
starter.
being a start. It's
Yeah.
God, what a bizarre year. DL Hall number 10, then McDermott 11, Povich 12, Mac Horvath, who was an early round draft pick this year, is 13. Judd Fabian, Max Wagner round out the top 15.
Does it mention Seth Johnson?
16th on the list.
And what
16th.
about Carter Baumler?
Carter Baumler is now 23rd on
Had
their
a
list
lot of
of
injury
Orioles
issues,
prospects. Yes, correct. So that is the new update from MLB.com of Orioles prospects. John Means, of course, made his first
He pitched
rehab
last night, right?
appearance last night. Went 2 innings, allowed 1 hit, no walks. Fastball, according to Matt Sabatis, the Bay Sox play-by-play voice, was at about 91 as he returns both from the Tommy John and from the back issue that he dealt with earlier this year. Struck out 2. They went 2 innings with him. He's going to need a lot more ramp up.
Does it mention a pitch count? I mean,
28, I
guess
believe.
28
Yeah,
pitches
that was
in 2
my
innings?
pitch.
That's good. That's
So, again, if the goal is let's just get him here and put him in the bullpen, then
You're pretty happy with that.
right, you'd say maybe he only needs a handful of appearances before you'd be willing to do that. If the goal is to have him make starts, then you would think that he would need probably 4 or 5 more before you would be in that place with John.
Makes perfect sense to me this year to, try and get him up to where he could help you for 2 to 4 innings. I mean, looking at him as a quote unquote starter, whether he starts the game or not, the notion you're going to start to get 6 innings or 5 and 2, I don't think it's happening.
I understand. I've said a couple of times. What I worry is that ultimately, with everyone else approaching their innings limits, and first it's Tyler Wells that's hitting the wall. Now you have to at least start to wonder if Kyle Bradish is hitting the wall. You're trying to do a 6-man rotation in order to see if you can limit this. I just worry that if more of these guys end up hitting a wall, that ultimately you just might not be able to make a run unless John Means were able to come back and be one of 2 things. Either you need to get more of the good Jack Flaherty. Either you need to get much more of that guy, or John Means has got to be able to be a starter for you by the time you get to the playoffs, because or some of these guys have to avoid the wall somehow, like not come up against it. But Kyle Bradish had been your best pitcher all season, and last 3 starts, you've started to wonder if this is just the nature of reaching your career high in innings and what was always going to happen. And I'm good with them trying the 6-man rotation first. I'm good with that being their first solution, but the bullpen's already a little thin. And you're losing Danny Colomb at the same time. It's an awful lot to ask of a bullpen to get you through this situation in order to allow for you to have a 6-man rotation. And you need all these guys to give you good starts. And there's a lot here.
There's a lot to unfold or unpack. But you would hope that if they go to a 6-man rotation, that more routinely these guys could get you at least into the 7th inning. They've got far too many 5-inning starts.
I agree. That's when I said that about again. Credit to Flaherty for battling the other night.
Yeah.
But the roadmap to the Orioles getting through this thing to make a run has to be good Flaherty, has to be at least 6 into the 7th inning, at worst battling, at best more than battling, giving you something really quality. There was reason to wonder.
His 2 games, he's faced 2 really good offensive
no question
teams,
about that.
The Blue Jays and the Astros. It'll be interesting to see him. When would he be scheduled to pitch?
He would be lined up for Monday, correct?
I think they're off Monday.
They're Monday. Oh, the Monday, yeah.
I think
no. They're
San
off.
Diego.
They do play San Diego, but I think it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, and they're off
They
Thursday
have 3
again.
games? Okay.
I believe that.
Yes, they're off Thursday.
Yeah.
They're off Thursday. Okay.
So, but with the 6-man rotation, I might be wrong about that now because
Irvin's pitching Saturday, right?
Radish is scheduled for Sunday.
Right.
So Grayson Monday.
Grayson Monday,
So
then it would be
Flaherty.
Then
Flaherty on Tuesday, yes. So, yes, with the six-man rotation, they bump him back a day to Tuesday.
Ryan Flaherty, who thought?
Right, who would have ever thought that Ryan, or maybe it's just his uncle. Maybe that's who it, or his nephew, I mean, Jack Flaherty.
Fourth cousins.
All right, we're going to head out to Seattle in 1 minute. Stan, you got together last night with Gary Stein and with a couple of former sports executives.
Yeah, we talked to Andy Dolich, who, by the way, has also co-authored a book with, is it Dave Newhouse, called Goodbye Oakland,
right?
Which is getting rave reviews, and it's going to be published.
Newhouse,
it's going to be it's going to be a paperback now too when it comes out again in 24. And we had also Marty Conway, who's a good longtime friend, who worked for the Orioles, Texas Rangers in marketing and promotions, and had a long stint at AOL, and now teaches at Georgetown University and does a lot of consulting.
If you missed the show, you can go to facebook.com/PressBoxSports, click on the videos tab. You can go to youtube.com/PressBoxOnline or PressBoxOnline.com/video, and you got a different schedule next week?
Yeah, but this is the first show in the history of these Zooms, which we started, that I ended up getting booted off the Zoom.
Oh, way to go, Stan.
Yeah, we lost our internet.
What the heck?
For about 2 minutes.
I had, it's funny, I said that when I was doing the show last night, there were a lot of cell phone problems. People that were calling in, were getting to making a nice point, and then all of a sudden, I don't know what was going on around these parts last night, but there were a lot of cell phone issues. So next week, you're doing a Monday show, but a little bit of a different Monday show.
Yeah, Monday, it'll be at 7 o'clock, and John Shelby will join us, former Oriole, who played in the 83 World Series championship team.
And then you will not be next Thursday. You'll be next Wednesday instead.
John Kelly from Kelly Benefits, who's the chairman of the Maryland Cycling Classic.
So next week, Monday, is it same time, 4 o'clock?
Nope, 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock on Monday, and then Wednesday, same time?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Very good. That's where you'll find Stan's shows next week. All right. Are you calling him again? Okay. Sorry. Griffin told me we needed 1 minute. I didn't know if that meant that 1 minute and then I could go to him. Sorry. My apologies. So
Rick Rizzs, the play-by-play voice, longtime play-by-play voice of the Mariners.
As you pointed out, all of a sudden the Mariners red hot.
Yeah. 15 of 19.
Won 15 of their last 19 games. Yeah, they are suddenly right back into the playoff picture. I believe Griffin told me it was a game and a half out in the AL wildcard standings, so they are right back in the mix as the Orioles.
Right there with the Blue Jays.
Correct. Just obviously, we have not been paying attention to the wildcard standings. The good news, on top of the Orioles winning yesterday, is that the Cardinals beat the Rays last night and extended the Orioles' lead in the division to 3 games. Mariners a game and a half behind the Blue Jays for the third wildcard spot. Boston 4 games back, the Yankees 5 games back of that spot.
That had to be a good feeling finally for the St. Louis Cardinals. Matthew Liberatore, who was traded for Randy Arozarena back in 2020, beat
I don't know that suddenly makes you feel that much differently about the trade in general, but yes, there is that. All right, Orioles-Mariners get underway tonight. Joining us now, longtime radio play-by-play voice for the Seattle Mariners. He is the great Rick Rizzs, and he's with us here on GCR. Rick, it's Glenn and Stan in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you. Thank you for taking a minute for us up early this morning out in Seattle.
Oh, anytime, Glenn and Stan. This is going to be a great series. The two teams with the best record in baseball since July the 1st, and it's gonna be a lot of fun, a lot to play for.
Well, the easy question is what's gotten into the Mariners, and is it as simple as, hey, if they had hit like this at the beginning of the year, they might not be in this situation.
Exactly. If they hit like this at the beginning of the year, they'd be in first place in the American League West, above the Texas Rangers, above the Astros. But it's been the constant of starting pitching. It starts there. The starting staff is one of the best, if not, in my mind, the best in baseball, and it's young. You got Luis Castillo at the top of the rotation, who's 30, one of the best pitchers in the league. But then you have Logan Gilbert with 10 wins on the year, and George Kirby with 10 wins. Gilbert's 25, and Kirby's 24, and then you have Bryce Miller, who's 24. Brian Wu just won on the IL, is only 23. Now you just called up Emerson Hancock, who's 24. He just made his Major League debut on Wednesday and went 5 innings against the San Diego Padres. So it starts there. starting pitching is great. The bullpen has been strong, even though it's evolved with different faces along the way the last 3 years. It's still one of the best in the American League, even though they traded away Paul Sewell. But the difference, guys, has been the offense. They're starting to score some runs right now. J.P. Crawford is probably is the MVP of this ball club. The catalyst at the top of the order. Julio Rodriguez is Julio Rodriguez now. He's the all-star that he was last year. Eugenio Suarez is hitting home runs and driving in runs. Cal Raleigh seems to hit a big home run at the big moment and down through the order. So it's been a lot of fun watching this team play because now they have a team that's hitting on all cylinders. Offense, the defense is great too. J.P. Crawford at shortstop is a wizard, and Julio out there in center field. So it's really a fun team to watch.
Hey, Rick, first of all, long time since I've talked to you. How many years have you been in Seattle now? Is it over 20?
Yeah, it's my 38th year.
38 years?
Yeah,
wow.
41 years in the big leagues in between. I was here for 9 years, and then I went to Detroit to try to replace a legend there. I was there in Detroit for 3 years, so that did work out. Dave Niehaus got me here in 1983 as a young broadcaster.
Wow.
Then I went to Detroit in 92 for 3 years, 92, 3, and 4. And the Tigers let me go. They wanted Ernie back, and rightly so. They should have never let him go.
Right.
Big story. And then Dave got me back here, and thank God I didn't miss the 1995 season because that was the year that the Mariners saved baseball here in the Northwest. That was a great year for Baltimore with Cal Ripken during the streak. We were there right before the streak when he broke Lou Gehrig's record. But that was the year that Ken Griffey Jr. and Jay Buhner and Dan Wilson and Randy Johnson, I go right down the order, Mike Blowers, Tino Martinez, they saved baseball here in the Northwest. If they didn't do what they did and how they did it in 1995, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here.
Hey, my question about this current team is you mentioned all those starting pitchers, and there was not a mention of, because you were talking young starting pitching,
Right.
Luis Castillo. I happen to have him on my fantasy team, and he was great the first 2 months of the season. What do you think's going on with him? He's just been so-so, but he's still the titular head of that staff, isn't he?
Yeah, oh yeah, he's still the ace of this staff. There's no doubt about it. They just didn't score any runs for him in the first half of the season. If you really take a look at the numbers, yeah, he's 7-7 on the year. But take a look at his walks. He doesn't walk anybody. Take a look at his strikeouts, his walk to strikeout ratio, his walks to innings pitched. And he's an ace. He battles and keeps you in every game, every 5 starts. And that, to me, that's the definition of an ace. He got off to a great start, and then he hit kind of a bump in the road for about 4 or 5 outings in the early part of the year. But I take his last, start as an example against the Angels. He went 6 innings. He gave up 7 runs, 10 hits, but he hung in there for 6 innings because, the bullpen was spent.
Mm-hmm.
Scott has done a great job managing this baseball team. I think he should be the American League Manager of the Year. I thought he should have won the award last year. But he needed Luis to go 6 innings, and he did. He battled, and the Mariners came back with 7 runs late in the ballgame to win it. But they don't win it unless Luis hangs in there and goes 6 innings. That was the key for that start, and that's what he does. He's got the great changeup to go with the fastball, an outstanding slider. He's got the hair, the mane of hair. It looks I call him like Secretary. He's got the most glorious braids of hair, I think, in Major League Baseball. And he's just a leader on this team, in the clubhouse, in the dugout. He takes care of those young players. And when he's on the mound, he gives you a chance to win every 5 days. And I love this guy.
Hey, the GM, Jerry DiPoto, who I've always admired from afar, he's not one that's risk adverse. He trades a really top-notch closer in Paul Sewell. But tell us a little bit about the return, because you got 2 players that seem to be useful this year in Rojas and Canzone. And then he got a 5'6" shortstop named Ryan Bliss, who sounds like a really top prospect out of Arizona.
Yeah, right now he's my favorite player. He's not here yet. I'm 5'7", he's 5'6".
Kind of guy.
Many years ago, the White Sox had Harry Chappis. Remember him? He was 5'4".
Yeah.
But the kid can play. I think he's one of the reasons why the Mariners made that trade. I think you're going to see him here eventually, in the big leagues. But Jerry DiPoto knows what he's doing. He's done a great job building this team. and they look at all different aspects of what they need, to win down the stretch, what they need to win when they get to the playoffs. And it was a heavy right-handed hitting lineup. Paul Sewald did a fantastic job when he was here. He's one of the nicest guys we've ever had in uniform, and he also did a great job as the closer on this baseball team. But they got in return 2 young players in Rojas and Canzone that are left-handed batters. And they've already come through to help us out a couple of wins, down this stretch. And we'll see Bliss, like I said, maybe sometime here in the near future. So they know what they need. Now they got some left-handed options on the bench, and that's what you need, especially when you're facing the Baltimore Orioles with those 2 mountain men coming out of the bullpen, Cano and Bautista. So, Jerry's done a great job. And no team in baseball has done a better job of drafting young starting pitching than the Mariners have over the last 5 years. They got Logan Gilbert in 2018 in the first round out of Stetson, and he's one of the best pitchers in this league. Next year in 2019, first round, they get George Kirby out of Little Elon University. I never heard of Elon University, and he's one of the best pitchers of this league right now. In 2021, in the 4th round, they get Bryce Miller. He was doing historic things in his first 3 and his first 5 starts, in the big leagues. He's been outstanding. And then they get Brian Wu in the 2021 draft in the 6th round, coming off Tommy John surgery out of Cal Poly State, but they saw something in this kid. They get Emerson Hancock in the first round in 2020 out of the University of Georgia. So right now the Mariners are one of the few teams in baseball that have had their 3 first-round picks in consecutive years, 2018, 19, and 20, that are in the big leagues right now, in Gilbert, in Kirby, and now Emerson Hancock, who made his debut on Wednesday. So, but go back to answer your question, they needed some left-handed bats, and they got good young left-handed bats in Canzone and also Rojas to help us out this year and in the future. Jerry's always looking to how do we make the ball club better down the stretch and the postseason and also in the upcoming years. And I think he'd done that, even though they traded away a great guy and a great pitcher like Paul Sewald.
Mariners play-by-play voice Rick Rizzs with us here on GCR. Orioles open up a series in Seattle tonight. Cal Gibson, Luis Castillo in the opener. Rick, I think everybody's kind of looked at the Astros, the Rangers, put the Orioles in that conversation. The Rays, although especially with McClanahan's sideline, you start to wonder if they have enough. Yeah. But I think we've looked at those teams as those are the teams to beat in the American League. If the Mariners continue to hit like this, is this maybe not just a scenario where they could get in, but they could become extraordinarily dangerous once they get in? The way that they're playing right now, it seems like if this can continue, they're going to be a real threat to the best teams in the American League.
This was the same situation as last year. There were teams looking at us hoping that that the Mariners didn't get to the playoffs because of the starting pitching that we have and the bullpen that they have. And I think it's the same scenario. They don't want to play us. I mean, they made it to the playoffs on September 30th of last year when Cal Raleigh hit a home run off of Domingo Acevedo to get our magic number down to 0, to get us in the playoffs, guys, for the first time in 21 years.
Yeah.
So teams didn't want to play them. And then we go to Toronto. Now there's the wild card series that just started last year because he had that extra team. And they won 2 games there. They won 2 out of 3. They swept them. Luis Castillo won the first game 4-0. That's what the ace does. They were down 8-1, and then they came back and won that second game by a score of 10-9 and swept the Blue Jays. So yeah, because when you have great starting pitching, teams don't want to play you in the playoffs because that's what wins in the playoffs, to have these guys coming at you in a short series like that. So yeah, the Mariners are only a game and a half out of the wild card. Toronto lost again yesterday, so they're only a game and a half out there and 5.5 out in the division. They've made up so much ground. They've got the best record in baseball, like I said, with the Orioles. They've won 7 in a row, 9 of their last 10, and it's all about consistency. They've won 6 consecutive series. That includes a 2-game sweep recently over the Padres. So, teams are looking at the Mariners like, we don't want to play that ball club when they get to the playoffs. And I believe in my mind, guys, they're going to get to the playoffs again.
Could have used a break this weekend, by the way, Rick. Really could have used if you guys maybe had. I mean, the Orioles have faced this really ridiculous schedule in the second half of the season. Could have really used a little bit of a break.
But you guys got to be tired. You played in Baltimore yesterday and beat Houston. You got the long flight, and you got to play tonight. So hopefully they're a little tired.
Hey, Rick, I got a little question, throw you a tiny curveball. You've gotten to watch Shohei Ohtani over the past few years. You've played them a lot more than we have up until this year. Everybody plays sort of an equal schedule. And you know what the Mariner organization is like. Do you expect them to be involved in talking Shohei Ohtani?
That's a great question. It's way above my pay grade, but I guess the obvious answer is there's every team, 30 teams in baseball would love to have Shohei Ohtani. What he's doing is nothing short of remarkable. Nobody has ever done what he's done. I know Babe Ruth did it, but he was a pitcher, for the Boston Red Sox, but he didn't come back and DH the next day.
Yep.
Like Shohei Ohtani does day in, day out. There was a doubleheader in Detroit recently. He pitches a shutout, a one-hit shutout, and then I thought, maybe the next game they're going to give him a day off. No, he's in the next game. 40 minutes later, he hits 2 home runs. I was talking to Mark Langston, and I said, "What is it with this guy? Doesn't he need a break? Don't they want to take it out of his hands and give him a breather?" He said, "No, he wants to play every game. He wants to play every game." And part of it, he says, he saw what Cal Ripken did, during the streak. He doesn't want to take any time off. But to answer your question, we'll have to wait and see. It's going to be a huge, price tag. But to add Shohei Ohtani, you're adding one of the best pitchers in the league. You're adding one of the best hitters in the league. So if you want to write the big check, man alive, he's going to make every ball club in baseball a whole lot better, whoever he lands with, because he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. I know the Angels tried to surround himself with some guys, a bunch of guys, and it's not happening. I think at the time they made the announcement he wasn't going to be traded after we swept the 4-game series. They were like 4-8. So he's going to look at free agency to see how much money he's going to get. And he gets to pick and choose where he wants. And Mark told me he loves it in Anaheim, lives on the beach. And they've done everything possible to take care of him with a 6-man rotation, because he does DH, every day. So would a club be willing to pay the money? Would a club be willing to go to a 6-man rotation to accommodate Shohei Ohtani to make sure that he makes, his 28 starts on the year? So it'll be interesting to see. So I guess I didn't answer your question, but everybody would love to have him.
Rick Rizzs, really appreciate you taking the time for us this morning. Enjoy this series this weekend. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, I love it. I love coming to Baltimore. I love staying there by the Inner Harbor. And you guys got that Blue Point crab. I just love that and love everything about the ballpark. Thank goodness for Camden Yards. That ballpark started the movement in the right direction of a retro ballpark, and that's what we have here in Seattle now at T-Mobile Park. So thank you guys for that, and it's going to be a great series starting tonight. Felix Hernandez weekend. Felix is going to go in the Mariners Hall of Fame.
Oh, how about that?
Great.
How about
and
that?
One of the great pitchers in our history. So we're going to have some great crowds for the Orioles in this 3-game series, guys. Great to talk with you.
Enjoy it, Rick. Thanks so much. Rick
I
Rizzs.
will. Take care, guys.
Mariners play-by-play voice. So they're
I'd forgotten that he worked in Seattle first,
then went to
and
Detroit,
then to
and
replace Ernie Harwell.
Yep,
what a
yes.
That was that's a bad spot.
2 things that jumped out at me there. Of course, we had kind of forgotten about it because there had been other things to talk about. There was that sort of faux Felix Batista, King Felix controversy around the All-Star game. I would like to hope that Mariners fans don't get after Felix Batista. Understand?
Now I'm thinking about
like
that.
he had nothing to do with that.
Right.
Like he was nothing but
we call him the Mountain.
Correct.
Yeah,
like that
we
was
didn't call him
it
King
was
Felix.
one silly tweet from the Orioles that meant nothing, and then this dope that hosts a radio show out in Seattle tried to run with it.
What do you think they call you? Yeah.
They can call me whatever they want. I mean, this guy's a dope. Like I don't know what else there is to say. I hope that Mariners fans look. You can do whatever you want to do. You buy a ticket, you can boo, cheer, whatever you want to do. But I would hope that they don't hold it personally against Felix Batista. That the Orioles sent out a tweet that said King Felix. I would hope that they understand that Felix Batista, again, even when this dope approached him, despite the awkwardness of the circumstances, was like, yeah, I would kind of rather not. Like, I have reverence for Felix Hernandez, so I would hope that's the case. The other thought, are you making a parallel when you bring up Ohtani? Is it hey, the greatest Japanese, MLB player ever played until now, played here in Seattle. They would be an obvious parallel for.
Well, I think the fact that there's such a large Asian American community in and around the Pacific,
which is part of why
Northwest.
Ichiro, loves Seattle and enjoyed being there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that the teams that'll really be in on him are both New York teams.
Sure.
Despite the fact Steve Cohen said we're retooling
right.
or whatever, I'm assuming the Mets and the Yankees. The Angels, of course, and then I'm assuming the Dodgers and the Giants and San Diego and Seattle. You're going to have a very vibrant market for Shohei Ohtani.
Is there any other team in baseball that we don't like? Is there another team that could be the Padres of a few years ago? Is there another team?
Surprise team?
Yeah, that's primed to. Like, could the Cardinals say this was miserable this year? Let's spend our way out of it.
Possible. They certainly have the support, for it. Yeah, I would think they would. Is it possible that Jed Hoyer in Chicago, as GM of the Cubs,
no, it's time now,
could convince the Ricketts family that, hey, I know it's a big ask,
right?
But this guy handles both sides of the ball.
I don't know. All right, when we come back in, Stan, the other story that was floating around yesterday was some more news about what the Orioles are looking for in this negotiation with the state. Let's talk a little bit about that. And, I think there's a lot of negativity towards it. I don't know that I'm quite in where you guys are with your responses to this story that came out last night about what the Orioles are looking for, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah, okay. I haven't read anything about it.
Okay, all right. I'll make sure that you see it before we have that conversation then. We'll do that next. It's Glenn Clark Radio. You feel that? That's the sound of football coming back, and now's the time to place your preseason bets with Superbook Sports. Superbook is the most trusted name in Vegas, and now you can use my promo code GlennClark23 to score up to $250 with their first bet bonus. Win or lose, they'll match your first bet up to $250 with the promo code GlennClark23. All one word, no spaces, two N's in Glenn. Don't miss out this football season. Win some money with Superbook Sports and that promo code GlennClark23. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
It's another exciting weekend of affordable family fun at Prince George's Stadium with the Bowie Bay Sox. It's the return of Grateful Dead Night on Friday the 18th. A special t-shirt package is available. Back-to-back fireworks carry on to Saturday the 19th with our Baytoberfest. Get some beer specials while you enjoy the game. And get here early on Sunday for a pregame Meet the Team autograph session. Get your tickets now by calling 301-805-6000 or anytime online at baysox.com. The Bowie Bay Sox. Let us be your 9-inning vacation.
I'm Michael Jangrandi, president of AJ Michaels, your carrier energy expert for 44 years. Save money, energy, and make your home more comfortable and virus-free. Find us at ajmichaels.com. That's ajmichaels.com.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
It's a Maryland thing you wouldn't understand.
Where the waves meet the shore, you will find Dorchester County. Hi, this is Jimmy Charles. When I think of Maryland, I think Dorchester County on the eastern shore where it's open for making memories. Dorchester County, it's a Maryland thing. For more info, visit www.visitdorchester.org.
It's a Maryland thing. Hell yeah. It's a Maryland thing. Hell yeah.
Picking a restaurant to try for the first time? Let's look at the Costas Inn. Here's a few checklist items. Quality of the food? Check. Quality of service? Check. Does restaurant have plenty of free parking? Check. And finally, does restaurant have delicious steamed crabs, crab cakes, crab soup, and specials galore? Check, check, check. Costas Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard. They check all the boxes.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
If you miss anything on the show, don't forget that you can watch full episodes at youtube.com/PressBox online, and you can download podcasts on Apple, iTunes, Amazon, and Grindr. Wait, did I say Grindr? I don't think that you would find it on Grindr. Not that I know it's on Grindr or anything, I swear. On second thought, you know what? I don't care what you think. Here's Glenn.
Hey, Griffin, you want to tell everybody what's coming up at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland?
Yeah, I do. I would love to tell you about the new menu that they have at David's over at the Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. You can check out David's new menu. It features barbecue ribs, strawberry cheesecake waffles, Blue Bay mussels, and, of course, snow crab legs by the pound. Your perfect gin and tonic is just a shake away as you craft your perfect combo, and be sure to stay for the live music every Thursday through Sunday. That's every weekend at the David's at Maryland Live Casino and Hotel. At Arundel Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, so last night, a couple different places, the Sun, the Banner, report that we've got a little bit more information on the holdup and why it is that maybe the lease has not yet been signed between the Baltimore Orioles and the state of Maryland. And the word is that John Angelos is looking for, of course, the state already approved $600 million in public money for both the Orioles and the Ravens.
$600 per.
Yes, correct. Exactly
lease,
right. He's looking for $300 million more than that. Also adds in that they're looking to develop what is currently public land and the parking lots that are shared between the Orioles and the Ravens, as we've talked about this idea of a ballpark village that apparently they're tossing around the word Camden Crossing as the name for this ballpark village. And I think one of the things that a lot of us have asked is, I think a lot of us have said, hey, that actually sounds like a good idea, but where exactly? Because there's kind of a space problem there unless you're going to move businesses out of their current spaces. There's not an obvious location. The parking lots are now being looked at as the location, which would present a problem because there's only so many parking lots, and apparently part of the lease that was signed with the Ravens guarantees 4,000 open-air parking spaces for the purpose of tailgating.
Mm-hmm.
That the lease cannot be amended to change that into garages,
right?
Because you wouldn't have the tailgating factor. So
it's hard to light the fires for the
becomes
grills.
Very difficult. Yeah. Yes, becomes a very difficult thing to do. Because that would be the obvious answer. Well, why don't you just convert, let's take the parking lots that you have, turn them into giant parking garages, then you can get a lot more parking spots out of it. Well, the Ravens the Orioles might say,
yeah, that'd be fine for us.
Good by us.
Nobody tailgates for an Orioles.
The Ravens want to protect the traditions of tailgating, and that's a big part of their crowd, and so they want to make sure that those lots are there specifically for tailgating. A lot of vitriol in response to this. Obviously, it comes on the heels of everything that happened earlier in the week with the Kevin Brown suspension. A lot of negativity towards it. My initial response was almost a half of a chuckle. Everybody asks for more. What
negotiation does it?
Right? I'm not really sure why it is that and I'm not trying to tell you that means that they should give it to the Orioles or anything like that, but if what we're offended by is an owner asking for more, that's what every owner in all of sports
does.
does.
They got $600 million
Correct.
to begin with, right?
That's the way this works. So I'm not going to be offended by them asking for more. If the point is, well, the state better not give them any more, okay, I get there's got to be a cutoff at some point.
Yeah, the interesting thing for me is I thought the holdup was that this was a much bigger, larger view of changing some of that territory from the Hippodrome down.
Mm-hmm.
I initially thought it was what's being talked about now, but I thought that the holdup that the Orioles wanted to be a part of some larger vision that was going to be a $3 or $4 billion public-private partnership to develop the avenue from the Hippodrome down to the ballpark. That's what I thought we were talking about. Now this is just not going to fly.
It's not going to. There's just no way. And that point is made in every story that was written about it. Every source has made it very clear. This is not going to happen. He's not going to be given this. The Orioles will not be given this land in order to develop. It's not. That's not going to be the case. So is there an area in between those things? Is there? I have said all along. I get it. Right now, all we're doing is saying if it's John Angelos' idea, we hate it. I understand that's where we've gotten to because it's been a rough week in Baltimore. But I have said all along that I'm in favor of the idea of greater development because it stands to benefit the entire area. It stands to benefit everyone. If there are more events, if there is more life downtown, that means more reason for there to be brighter lights on, for people to be walking around the downtown area. It stands to benefit everyone if you move in this area. The comparison that's made, everybody knows that Westmore and John Angelos went down to Atlanta and toured the Battery. As has been made in every point, the Braves moved well outside the city proper in order to find a place where they could get the land in order to build this entire area.
Yeah.
That's not there in downtown Baltimore. That space simply isn't there. So I like the idea of a ballpark village, of a Camden Crossing. I think it's good to have more people downtown, to have more life downtown. I think that is a very good thing. Combine that with the new arena, combine it with Topgolf and the casino and, more of the entertainment district that's being built there. It all sounds good to me, but there's a space problem. There's a sheer issue of where does it go? And this doesn't really fly. This idea doesn't work. So what happens next becomes the question. The other part of this is that apparently John Angelos had suggested a 2-year lease extension in order to buy more time. Let's get this figured out. Let's make this done. Understandably, Maryland officials would say back, let's not mess around with that. Let's just get this squared away right now. Let's get this taken care of. At some point, that could presumably always be revisited if they get to a deadline. Again, I keep saying the Orioles are going to be in Baltimore next season. They have to have an agreement in place in order to play those games. It's possible that if this negotiating continues, they could revisit all right, if we got to do a 1-year thing, if we got to do a 2-year thing, we'll get that done.
Right.
And that will allow for the people with the conspiracy theories and to prey on that. I understand that'll be the way that it goes. But as we've continued to say, those of you that keep trying to tie things into Nashville or whatever, you are separated from reality. There is $600 million on the table in Baltimore. Major League Baseball ain't letting anyone walk away from $600 million. There aren't $600 million on the table in public money in other markets. Major League Baseball is not walking away from that with anyone. It doesn't work that way. But how does this go from now? I don't have that answer. Is there a point at which John Angelos says, well, let's go ahead and do the lease if we can continue to go? Is there enough trust between he and Westmore that we can do a ballpark lease and separate my view for this village from it and continue to negotiate about that in the coming years? I don't know.
That looks like that's where they're headed, in my opinion, because this is an entirely different notion than what I was led to believe. I was never of the opinion it was going to be a village at Camden Yards. I thought it was going to be a larger worldview.
And the way that John talks, he has that. But I like the comparison to Atlanta and to these St. Louis and other places has always been
Atlanta, and the way I've seen racetracks do it is that there's enough space for people to live within this area, doctors' offices, offices, restaurants, shopping.
Maybe a music venue.
I don't see where that's possible in the cutout.
If anyone's ever been up to, they do this at the football stadium in Foxborough has this, but again, they went to Foxborough.
Right.
It's not in Boston. It's in Foxborough. Now, I know that in St. Louis, they did it right around the ballpark, right? Yeah. Like, they created this right around the ballpark. I believe at a smaller scale than some of the other ones, but they did create this whatever. I don't even remember what they call it in St. Louis. But they did create it right at the ballpark. But some of these other places, they bring up Texas. That's in Arlington. It's not
Village.
Ballpark Village is what they call it in St. Louis. Even what they did with the Xfinity Live thing in Philadelphia, anyone who's gone up there knows that the ballparks are separated from the city. They're in the south portion of the city where they were giant swaths of space where there used to be another football stadium and another arena that they tore down. And so they had the space there in order to replace those with this Xfinity Live concept that they put there. So, and that's a minimal version of this too as well. That's not, apartments and, condominiums, things like that. That's just a sort of restaurant, bar area that they put in Philadelphia. I like the idea. I'm in favor of the idea. I think it's a good thing. But are we running out of practicality for it? I always ask that question, where? And no one really had a straight answer for me about where. I don't see it. I don't see right now. I get it. You can't take away the parking lots. I understand that in a world where you have a better public transportation system, there's not a whole lot of parking, say, at Yankee Stadium. It doesn't exist. But they have a much better public transportation system to make sure that people can get to the games. That doesn't exist here. I would like to fix that too. Let's put it all on the list, right? Like, let's improve all of the infrastructure of Baltimore. But there are still a number of people that would say, if I can't park near the ballpark, I'm probably not going to be going to games. And so it's not practical to do it in the parking lot space. I don't think there's another option at that point, short of taking away people's businesses, and that becomes a far bigger. You could try to make an argument for the greater good, but if you want to give John Angelos credit, I think John Angelos has not wanted to displace where people live or displace where people's businesses run. I think the reason why he wants it in that space is to avoid those things, which sounds thoughtful, but just in practicality doesn't work. And I don't know where else there is. Like, you taking away convention center space? Or you taking away?
I don't have a good answer. I don't have a good answer.
I think you're running out of options at this point. Yeah. And at some point, the question becomes, I guess for John Angelos, it's twofold. Does at some point he say to himself, well, if we can't get this, it's not worth it to me? And then does the Angelos family sell the team? Mm-hmm. Or does at some point he say, look, I've tried, I've exhausted every option, I've attempted to try to make this thing work. I want to continue the conversation. I want to see if there's a way. Can we look at other places to add parking lot space so that if we did shift this parking lot space, we could I have no doubt.
You get into taking other space where you got to
it's the same.
Relocate.
There is not more space downtown. It doesn't exist. And there's always an amount of money that can make people whole, I guess, but it's a hell of a time to try to be doing that. Like, the real estate market would suggest it's going to cost the state an awful lot of money to try to buy people out of there, or they're going to do it cheap, and that would piss off a lot. There's no way to win this. You can't get everything that you want here. So when do you blink? When do you blink and say, it just can't be done, we got to pivot and do something else? And with the date lingering, I don't know what that answer is. I'm struggling with what the next play is for this. But I'm not mad at him for asking. He's asking. The state doesn't have to say yes. And it's pretty clear the state's not going to say yes.
Aspirational asks.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'll ask for, I can ask Stan tomorrow to start paying me $500,000 a year to work here at PressBox. And with, the fact that they already pay me $400,000, you would think that wouldn't be all that crazy to give it a little bit of a bump, right?
Yeah, that's really tough getting to that 500.
It's the 500 where the cutoff is.
I think Griffin wants more money too.
Right.
Exactly.
Griffin said he would prefer to start making $200 a week instead of the $5 that he normally makes. $5 that he normally makes per week, and that's extraordinary. Think about the percentage increase that it is to go from $5 a week to $200 a week. We just can't do that. I'm sorry. It's not an option. That's the way that it goes. Then it would set a precedent that this can't be met anywhere.
So this is just not going to happen. Like the Camden Crossing, the Battery. It's there's no future that specific. There's really no avenue to that.
I don't want to say no. I don't. I don't want to speak in absolutes because you just never know when. But I am very much struggling with
outside of
the how, right? Like the how would be.
Yeah, I mean,
is there let's spitball some things, right? Is there a world in which you could take the warehouse,
right,
alter that? It would piss off a ton of people.
Like make it more of an.
I don't see the warehouse being.
I
what could you do down? What's it? Conway Street that runs from Harbor Place.
Okay, yeah, down
now
going
you're
that
talking
way.
About recreating,
and that's
Harbor Place.
and that's a huge, intersection of traffic that you're dealing with there as well, right? That I don't think.
It's a tricky, but I guess you could have some sky bridges.
Okay.
Over from
that's, by the way, first of all, somebody would argue that if you're going to try to do something that involves people being downtown more frequently, that you'd want to look into. Like whenever anybody goes out to an event in Indianapolis, everybody always scoffs at the idea of there being major events in Indianapolis.
Right.
Like in the winter, you're going to Indianapolis, and then you get out there, and the big takeaway is if you want to, you don't have to go outside. They have built a system of those sky bridges that connects from hotel to mall to whatever it is they have downtown in order to prevent you from having to spend much time outside if the weather is that bad that you don't want to.
The question is, would something be able to be created along that Conway Street? Would you let's spitball for a second. Would you conceivably park around the harbor,
right?
Like as if you were going to Harbor Place. The idea of walking that way to the stadium,
and this is on the way.
On
now
the way,
is what you're saying.
Something along.
So they just built that giant high-rise right there.
Yeah.
Was it whatever they call that?
Yeah.
And that's the biggest now in the city, correct?
Yeah.
So you'd have to get past those first couple of high-rises. And then there's a little bit of space. There is some housing over there, so I don't know what you do about that. And then you're butted up against the convention center and that church that refuses to move.
Right.
Right? That has been approached as they've tried to change the convention center over the years. I think they've approached that church with exorbitant amount of money, and the church has said nope every time.
Yeah.
So I guess the answer would be there had been talk about trying to go take the convention center and connect it a little bit more towards the arena.
Right.
So if one of those hotels were willing to be displaced, could you take some of that back convention center area, move it over to where? But now you need to replace that. Like if you want events downtown, you need the hotels.
Yeah.
So you got to make up for that hotel space somehow.
So that was gonna be my other, I guess, question. Do you move this Camden Crossing battery-like thing? Do you move it somehow north and it's kind of more closer to the arena, and then?
Well, that was.
Obviously,
well, that was a notion. That was a notion. I don't know where I got that notion, but my idea had been all along that this vision was from like the Hippodrome down Utah Street.
So if the argument is that you would be taking, we'd
have to look. We'd have to drive down there and really look at what we'd be talking about condemning. And whether that could be repurposed.
Well, and somebody would say if it's office buildings, there's always more of an inclination. Like we're willing. Nobody cries over losing office buildings.
Right.
Now there will be people that will be put out in the process,
especially in this day and age. Where
that's true. Where people aren't really
home.
working from the office. But nobody cries. You don't. You can do that without creating an uproar. If you're taking people out of their homes, if you're taking small businesses out, like that stretch where pickles and sliders and
that's
it
not
would
gonna
create.
Fly.
I mean, this city would be furious if you were displacing long-standing business owners.
Now, like that Chipotle, like that's...
Yeah, nobody cares about that, obviously, right? Or the Starbucks across the street. Nobody would be mad about losing. But small business owners that have been in their locations for some time, there would be fury over displacing those people. Displacing major office buildings, you can find there's more commercial real estate that you can find if you really want to shift somewhere else in the city. That would not create the same uproar if that were to be the case. But now you are getting further away from the ballpark proper.
It'd be great to get a city planning person on to talk about it.
Unfortunately, I reached out to someone in that field, and this
they don't
is
feel like even
the awkwardness of this is very real. Remember the story that came out of our friend Bill Cole, like saying, I'm perplexed by this situation. Like, Bill's a good guy, and Bill's a guy that would typically probably come on with us, but, like, there's a genuine angst. Like, we got to get this figured out right now. Yeah. And they're trying to avoid, every time any politician has talked, they've done everything in their power to avoid negotiating publicly because they're trying to keep things amicable and just make sure that this thing gets done. So you have Wes Moore on, you have the mayor on, and they just all say, you know, I got 99 problems, but the Orioles aren't one, right? They all say they're all saying the same thing. And I understand the sensitivity of it. I do. This is a major city partner that you're dealing with that you don't want to add fuel to the fire. You don't want to be the ones that are trashing their ideas and trashing their plans because you still need to hammer this out and make this work somehow, some way. I am really staring at, like, the map of the area around the stadium, and I am really struggling with this. Like, it is killing me trying to come up with an answer. Like, if you want to displace, if you could somehow displace the Hampton Inn without displacing the stretch of Pickles and all that, that would give you a little bit of space. Down the first base line, right? It would give you a little bit of space there.
That's not really.
It's not.
That's
it's
not
enough.
Grand vision.
It's definitely not enough. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. All right.
Maybe they'll move the walls in even further.
Oh, and then they could take some stadium space, and that could become.
Can they move? What is that? The players' parking lot? I don't know. Like.
The parking.
That's not going anywhere.
No, that's certainly not.
Parking
the players, but in general, I don't think that the parking lot space is
just not enough.
I don't think it's in play. I think.
Well, yes. Well, like
specifically because they agreed with the Ravens to the number of 4,000.
Oh, okay.
The agreement they have in place with the Ravens is 4,000. Apparently, there are some other issues that were unfolding in this. Like, the part of the Ravens agreement means that whatever you give the Orioles, we now go back and amend our agreement.
Yeah.
To get that as well.
Just give the Orioles $300 million more.
Right. Correct. So there are bigger problems.
That's why my view of it was always that it was going to be a public-private partnership.
It seems like that would be the correct answer. Yeah. That's where we are. All right, we'll come back in. We'll get a tidbit. We'll get two-bit or wind down for the week. It is Glenn Clark Radio.
Catch that festival feeling in Charm City. Everywhere you go, you'll find exciting entertainment, delicious eats, and endless summertime fun. Cheer on the O's at Camden Yards, pick crabs by the waterfront, beat the heat inside a world-class museum, and make memories that will last a lifetime. Go to baltimore.org for more information and to plan your visit.
It's game on every day at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Here, you are in on every play with 100-foot screens at Sports and Social, the best table games action, and FanDuel Sportsbook, all just steps away. The best bar bites and drinks to indulgent steaks and curated cocktails. Your game day only gets better when matched up with Live's distinguished dining options. Late game? No problem. Our luxury hotel awaits. Live Casino and Hotel Maryland is the place to be on game day and every day. For more information, visit www.maryland.livecasinohotel.com. At Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All electronic tolling is here to stay in Maryland, and DriveEasyMD.com helps you cruise a little easier. We're Maryland's tolling resource. Home to EasyPass, pay-by-plate, and video tolling. It's never been easier to pay your way. DriveEasyMD.com will keep you moving.
The Orioles are off and running, out to prove that last season wasn't a fluke, and they are one of the best teams in baseball. Hi, I'm Paul Valley, host of the Bat Around for PressBox. Tune in every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon as Zach Goodman and I break down every Adley bomb, every Tony Tater, and every save from the mountain. Like a warm hug from Rutschman, the Bat Around has you covered with all things Orioles as we embark on what's sure to be a magical summer in Birdland. So tune in every Saturday for the best in Orioles coverage right here on the Bat Around.
It's another exciting weekend of affordable family fun at Prince George's Stadium with the Bowie Bay Sox. It's the return of Grateful Dead Night on Friday the 18th. A special t-shirt package is available. Back-to-back fireworks carry on to Saturday the 19th with our Baytoberfest. Get some beer specials while you enjoy the game. And get here early on Sunday for a pregame Meet the Team autograph session. Get your tickets now by calling 301-805-6000 or anytime online at baysox.com. The Bowie Bay Sox. Let us be your 9-inning vacation.
That first sip, that first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The latest edition of PressBox is available now. On the cover, Dave Ginsburg remembers Goose as he looks back on the impact that late Tony Siragusa had both on and off the field here in Baltimore. Plus, he explains how Goose's kids are working to continue that legacy with the Goose Flights program. Also inside, Todd Karpovich profiles the path Tyler Wells has taken to becoming a star in the Orioles rotation. And you'll find a special summer travel guide with information about events and activities throughout the state. PressBox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores. And you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
If you need more of Glenn, you can also hear him every Sunday with Rita on 105.7 The Fan. But also, if you need more of Glenn, what's wrong with you?
All right, winding down for the Friday edition of the program and for the week. Stan the Fan Charles in studio with us. Let's go ahead and get a tidbit. Tidbit is brought to you today by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
You mean that previous segment wasn't the tidbit?
No, I'm still saying, I'm telling you the entire time, I'm like searching the map. I'm not even, I'm searching the map of the entire area. Like, well, could you do that? And I just said to Griffin when Stan walked out during the break, I said, the shame of this is everyone hates the Hilton.
Right.
Like, everyone hates it. Right. And if there had been foresight a few years ago, that would be the ideal spot, would be right there where the Hilton currently stands. But, you know, just that ain't it. It's where we are. Nothing you can do about it now, and I don't think there's a chance in hell. What it would cost anyone to try to get the Hilton off of that piece of property.
Yeah,
and that was a government partnership for the Hilton, wasn't it? Didn't the?
I think it was a city.
That's what I thought. It was a city partnership on the Hilton. Yeah. Not happening. Yeah. Not an option. So you're left with what? And I just keep, I'm telling you, I'm staring at it. I'm zooming in. I'm looking at every little street.
What's
like,
this place? Yeah.
I was staring down Conway Street. I'm like, well, I guess. Nope. No. Just, I mean, you'd have to move the convention.
But it's not as if I'm projecting that Conway Street would be where all this stuff was going to be. Is Conway Street simply too far from the Harbor Place?
Right.
Is it too far? Because the Harbor Place is a disaster now.
Oh, you're suggesting that you
I'm
try to take like the Harbor Place area,
the old Harbor Place.
Oh, that's an intriguing idea, Stan.
Yeah.
So
I thought you were trying to find space up Conway Street.
It was. Is that so long a walk?
I think it would be a hard sell, and didn't somebody else just get the rights to redevelop Harbor Place?
That might be.
Well, let's say that they did do Harbor. Like, what if they installed some sort of tram? I guess that ran. That was specifically taking people to the ballpark. I guess from the harbor.
I'd be interested. David Bramble, right? Correct, was the one who was given the rights to redevelop Harbor Place.
Yeah. He would be a great guy to have.
Yeah, I'd love him. I'd love to talk. I think the answer he would say is, "Whoa, no." I think that's what his response would be, but. In theory,
maybe he'd get great seats at the Orioles game.
That makes it all worth it. I do think that John Angelos would probably say no. The idea is I hate saying it this way because he wouldn't want it to be said that you want to suffocate and like force people to be in this area around the ball games.
Mm-hmm.
Like you want it to be like but again, those things work when you're not downtown. Like it's very difficult to accomplish both things, is have a downtown ballpark, and I just don't see it. I don't see it.
I'll try to lighten the mood. Jake Rill pointed out from MLB.com last night that 12 years ago, Bryce Miller and Jordan Westburg, they played.
How about a friend of mine who we both know, but I don't know if he wants me to say who it was. his suggestion was basically the only way this could have ever happen, and you can tell me, Bud, if you want me to say that you said this, suggests the only way this could ever happen is if at some point Steve Bisciotti or future Ravens owner decided they wanted a stadium elsewhere in the area in order to similarly be able to profit better off of. Like, that's one of the things people would point out is that the Ravens, they don't really have – the only thing they benefit is just being downtown, but they don't run any business. There's no shop open downtown. There's no restaurant that they have around the stadium only lives for them on game days. Or if they do a Billy Joel concert or something like that, right? That's the only advantage they get out of that stadium. So the argument would be, at some point, if Steve Bisciotti decides I've had enough and sells, would a future owner of the Ravens say, why are we so hell-bent about being downtown? Why don't we find some space where we could have not 4,000 parking spots, 40,000 parking spots to have tailgating and live, and we get the rights, we can sell the parking. And
when John Angelos buys the Ravens is what you're
I don't think that day will ever come.
No,
I don't think that day will ever
happening.
Be a thing. But yeah, I mean that's probably the case.
Bryce Miller and Jordan Westbrook both grew up in Texas, and they faced off against each other in Little League 12 years ago, and they hit home runs off of each other.
How about that?
So 12 years later, obviously Bryce Miller is scheduled to pitch on Sunday.
Yes, let's hope one of those things happens, because if the other thing happens,
that'd be
really weird world. I don't know what the circumstances in that game would be that Jordan Westbrook's pitching and Bryce Miller's hitting. But let's root for the other thing.
Speaking of Bryce Miller, he faced off against Chase Silseth last Sunday. They both had 10 strikeouts in the Mariners-Angels game, and that is the second time ever that two rookie pitchers both had 10 strikeouts in the same game. The first time it happened, 1906, Jack Coombs and Joe Harris in a 24-inning game.
It's funny. I just used those two
names.
Yeah,
in Immaculate Grid.
Immaculate Grid. But one of them didn't play for the Rockies.
Oh, son of a bitch. We probably should have known that.
Yeah.
Probably.
1906? Yeah, I guess the Rockies.
Just came a little short.
Matt Olson now has 40 home runs on the season. Ronald Acuna has 53 stolen bases. They are the third pair of teammates in Major League Baseball history.
I hear that team's good, by the way.
The Braves, not bad. Where one player has 40 home runs and another has 50 stolen bases before the month of September. This is the third instance that this has happened.
Canseco and Henderson.
No.
It's so funny that we both went right to
Henderson.
Neither.
No.
Yeah.
Neither, actually.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's 50 steals and 40 home runs.
Yes, one player had 40 home runs, one player had 50 steals.
Does it involve Maury Wills?
It does not. 1970 Cincinnati Reds.
1970 Cincinnati Reds. Joe Morgan.
Not Joe Morgan, yeah. Surprisingly.
Didn't steal the bases.
He did not steal the bases.
Pete Rose didn't steal that much, okay.
This was a good Reds team, obviously.
Yeah, the big red machine.
Is it Tony Perez doing the home runs?
It was not Tony Perez doing the home runs.
1970?
1970.
Johnny Bench?
Johnny Bench had 42 home runs before the start of September.
So we had a bunch of we had a bunch of stolen bases for the 1970s.
Was it Ken Griffey Sr.?
It was not Ken Griffey Sr. It was Bobby Tolan.
That's a good.
51 stolen
I don't think
bases.
I was coming up with Bobby Tolan for the record.
In 1996, the Cleveland baseball team.
In 96? Albert Bell.
Albert Bell had 40
Kenny
home
Lofton.
runs, Kenny Lofton, 50 stolen bases. Yes.
All right. Very good.
Do another one, or is that good?
If you got a quick one, sure.
I mean, I think we could do it quick. So on Saturday, Gunnar played his 100th game of the season. He hit home run number 19. It is the second most by an Orioles player in their first 100 games of their rookie season.
Say that one more time. It's the
second most by an Orioles player in their first 100 games of their rookie season.
Okay.
Gunnar with 19. So the leader had 20 in their first 100
Cal?
games. Not Cal. He is part of the larger tidbit I was going to make. So Gunnar now has the ninth most home runs by an Orioles rookie.
He's part of what?
Gunnar hit 19 home runs in his first 100 games of his rookie season.
I got that part. You said something about.
He's going to ask a question that's going to expand on this thought.
Okay.
So
he at 19 home runs, he is the ninth most home runs by an Orioles rookie. Can you name the 8 guys with more home runs during their rookie season? Who, as Gunnar tries to.
Well, is Cal on that list?
Cal is on that list. Yes.
Eddie Murray.
Eddie Murray is on that list. Murray had 27. Cal had 28. That is second and third.
Don Baylor.
Not Don Baylor. Trey Mancini had 24 home runs his rookie year, and he had 20 home runs in his first 100 games of 2017, which was his rookie year. His full rookie season.
So this is just in a rookie year.
Yes. Number one, we should know.
Is Jim Gentile one of them?
Jim Gentile is one of them. He had 21 home runs in 1960 as an Orioles rookie.
Adley?
Not Adley.
He didn't hit 19 home runs.
No. How many did Adley have last year?
How about Kurt Blefary?
Kurt Blefary is on the list. He had 22 home runs in 65, his rookie season.
Mountcastle?
Ryan Mountcastle has the most home runs by an Orioles rookie. He had 33.
33.
Oh, I
2 years ago.
Oh, man.
Yeah. 33 home runs for Mountie.
So wait a minute, that was his rookie year, the 2020 season.
2020, yeah. So 2020 was excused for all the
because it was so short. That
So how many do we have so far?
you have the top 4, you have the top 5.
6. We have
Yes.
6 of the
Looking
9.
for 2 more in the top 8. And they are old. They're old fellas.
Are they Orioles? They're not St. Louis Browns, are they?
No, they're not St. Louis Browns.
Brooks.
Not Brooks.
Boog Powell.
Not Boog.
Wasn't Mike Epstein.
Yet, like, not long seasons either with the Orioles. They're like long tenures with the Orioles.
Oh, good.
Sam Bowens?
Sam Bowens is one of them.
Wow.
1964. He had
What a
22 home
pull.
runs.
I don't know.
And then finally, Ron Hansen.
Oh, okay.
And his 1960 was his rookie season with the Orioles. He also had 22 home runs.
Those are some great names for the grid.
Yeah, right? You got to store those away. But do you know what other teams Sam Bowens played for?
I think he played for the Washington Senators.
Bingo. Yep. Washington Senators. And
Look
Baltimore
at
Orioles.
Stan.
And then Ron
Look
Hansen
at
played for the
Stan.
Chicago White Sox.
And
a stint with the Yankees and the Royals.
And the Yankees, right.
And the Royals.
Ended up a long-time scout for the Yankees, Ron Hansen. Who is Brooks Robinson's best friend in baseball.
I think I knew that.
Yeah.
I do think I knew that. Here's what's coming up totally tubular-wise this weekend. Tubular is brought to you by Superbook Sports. Again, hammer.
Stan Charles, 23.
Hammer. Ravens, just go outright to win. Don't even bother. Don't play with the points. Just hammer it because you got a $250 bonus bet up to $250. They're going to match your first bet up to $250. So make it deposit $250, make that bet. You're probably going to win. And then add to it that you're going to get that $250 back in free bets as well. So do it now. But use that code, Glenn Clark 23.
Stan Charles 23.
If you're bored, Stan
Charles
Charles 23 as well. You can use both codes. Superbook.com.
Us old people have to stay together. Stan Charles 23.
Download the Superbook app. Orioles Mariners tonight at 10. Kyle Gibson and Luis Castillo. It's also on MLB Network in the rest of the country. It's on MASN 2 locally. Tomorrow at 9:40, it's on MASN 2, and then it's on Fox Sports 1 in the rest of the country for Cole Irvin and George Kirby. Kevin Burkhardt doing the game tomorrow night for FS1.
What do we know about tonight's MASN 2 game? Do we know who's broadcasting tonight?
We know who's supposed to be broadcasting the game tonight.
Supposed to be. Are his initials KB?
Supposed to be. We will. Man, that was really tough too the other day when. I don't know if you heard. I got told in the afternoon by
Chance.
No, on Wednesday, I had a couple people tell me, "Hey, by the way, Palmer has COVID."
Yeah.
And I said, well, the first text I got was, "There's a COVID issue," and I was like, "Oh God, is there in the clubhouse? What a nightmare!" And all I got was, "There's a COVID issue," and then like a couple hours before the game, and I just knew that the moment that people turned the game on and saw there's an entirely they're gonna start running wild with.
Right.
Did everybody else get suspended, or did they all walk? And I'm like, I want to say something, but I don't want to put Jim Palmer's business out there. Like, health is a thing that unless it was my job to be a beat reporter, I'm not going to put someone else's health information out there. So all I said was, tonight's broadcast crew changes have nothing to do with anything. That's all I wanted to say. And
the guy I feel really bad for is Mike Devereaux.
Right.
Devo got three games 3 weeks ago. These were his second 3 games, and he got to do one of them.
Well, at least they didn't crowd the. Anyway, tomorrow night, as I said, at 9:40 on Sunday, 4 o'clock on MASN 2, Kyle Bradish and Bryce Miller. Some other highlights this weekend, of course, Ravens-Eagles preseason opener tomorrow night at 7 on WBL 11. It's also on NFL Network in the rest of the country. The Women's World Cup quarterfinals continue overnight tonight on Fox. Australia and France, 3 a.m., and then England-Colombia at 6:30 a.m. Athletes Unlimited Lacrosse final weekend out in Sparks tomorrow on ESPN Plus starting at 1, and on Sunday on ESPN Plus starting at 1 as well. Everything else, you can go to glennclarkradio.com and find it there. Anything non-sports-wise?
The big movie today out on Netflix is Heart of Stone, which is the Gal Gadot, or is it Gal Gadot? I think it's Gal Gadot, but she's Rachel Stone, like world famous special agent, and she has to like go save I think all the other agents or something.
You were just talking about that the other day. You said this is an exciting. I got to get out of here quickly.
Gal Gadot in my
Immaculate Grid.
Yeah.
Smart. That's smart. Right?
It seems like it's just Mission Impossible, but with Gal Gadot. So
I mean, it might be okay.
Yeah.
I like Gal Gadot.
Otherwise,
I
pretty.
like her a lot.
Yeah, pretty.
Israeli.
Couldn't really save that last Wonder Woman film. Though.
No, unfortunately, no. Otherwise, pretty slow weekend. A new episode of Winning Time on Sunday night on HBO, followed by a new series called Telemarketer on HBO.
Do we know anything about it?
It's like it's kind of like a docu-series where they go behind the scenes of these telemarketing agents who kind of expose how much of a scam telemarketing is. Looks kind of interesting. It's executive produced by the Safdie brothers and Danny McBride.
The Safdie brothers did is that the crew behind the Adam Sandler film, right? Didn't they do Uncut Gems? Isn't that them?
No, was that them?
Isn't them? Am I crazy? I thought that was them.
What else did they do? He was the one was just in Oppenheimer. One of the brothers.
I thought I could have sworn that's who made that. Am I nuts? Have I lost my mind?
Yes, it was. Yeah,
Thank
you're right.
you.
Yes.
Jesus.
You were 100% right. Uncut Gems.
Hey, I'm starting to really get uncomfortable there for a second.
Yeah.
All right, very good.
Just wanted to make sure I didn't give you wrong information.
Everything else.
Big news on MLB trade.
Oh, yes?
Jose Bautista to officially
I saw retire as a Blue Jay. And, of course, here we send him nothing but nothing. That's what we send.
Roofnet Odor will send him.
Correct. A nice fruit basket for sure. All right. Thanks today to Rick Rizzs. Thanks also to Bo Smolka. We'll get that up in the greatest hits section of the
Oh, my God. It's so good.
tab at glennclarkradio.com. Stan, as always, thank you, sir. Great to see you.
My pleasure.
Tomorrow morning, you're on with the guys in the Bat Around?
With the guys tomorrow, yeah.
10 to noon, Paul and Zach talking baseball. You can join them, and Stan will be a part of that. And as he mentioned, John Shelby joins he. And it's you and Ross and John Shelby on Monday.
On Monday at 7.
Very good. So you can check that out. The Orioles don't play until later, so you can watch that show first and then watch the Orioles game. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Visit Baltimore, Live Casino and Hotel, Glory Days Grill, Dorchester County, the Bowie Bay Sox, Royal Farms, Costas Inn, Superbook Sports, the Baltimore Orioles, Birdland Sports, Easy Pass MD, Washington County, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. See you Sunday at 1 with Rita on 105.7 The Fan, and back here Monday morning, 10 a.m. Have a great weekend. Go Birds. Duke sucks.